This motherfucker is a balls-kicking maniac. Pulled a man's entire chakra network out of his skin, held it up in the air like a damn kite. He wants to strip chakra out of every human being on Earth and be the last one standing. This is what happens when you fail a child, and the child succeeds anyway.
The bowl left his hands before he understood it was leaving. 1 second, the chipped clay rim sat between his fingers, the warmth of thin broth rising into his face, and the next second it was gone, lifted across the long wooden table by a boy twice his size who laughed in his face like the whole room had been waiting for the punchline. Naruto Uzumaki was 6 years old. His stomach had been folded in on itself since breakfast, and breakfast had been half a rice ball, because the older girl across the hall had smiled at him in that way that meant she was going to spit in whatever he did not eat fast enough. He had been sitting at the dinner table for 9 minutes. He had made it through 4 spoonfuls. The boy who took the bowl, his name was Genta, 11 years old, son of a fishmonger who had lost his older brother to the Nine-Tails attack, held the food above his own face, tipped it back, and drank the broth in one swallow. Then he set the empty bowl back down in front of Naruto. He did not slide it. He placed it there. The sound the ceramic made on the wood was the loudest thing in the room. At the head of the table, Suka, the woman who had run the orphanage floor for 9 years, did not look up from her own meal. Her chopsticks kept moving. The other staff member, a younger woman named Pin, did glance over, and her eyes found Naruto's face for exactly half a second before she went back to her bowl with the focus of someone who had been told once, in a tone she had never forgotten, not to waste her attention on the fox. Nobody said anything. Nobody had said anything at this table for a long time, not when Naruto was the one being taken from, because the rule in this building had been the same since the staff meeting 3 winters ago, the meeting held in the hallway outside the boys' dormitory while Naruto slept. The meeting where Suka had crossed her arms and told the rest of them in a low voice that the demon child would be fed what was left and nothing more. And if the other children did the feeding for them, that was between the children. Naruto looked at the empty bowl. He looked at Genta. Genta grinned with broth still in his teeth. Something behind Naruto's eyes switched off. He had felt it before. A soft, thick heat at the base of his skull that rose into his jaw when adults grabbed him in the halls and left marks his clothes had to cover. But he had never let it do anything. He had always pulled it back down into his chest and swallowed it, and gone to sleep hungry. He was 6. He did not yet have the vocabulary for what lived in him. He only had the feeling, and the feeling had been getting heavier every month for as long as he could remember. Tonight it did not pull back down. He reached across the table. His arm was short. His fingers were small. The reach looked harmless right up until his hand closed around Genta's wrist above the bowl. And even then the older boy was still grinning because the demon child had never touched anyone. Genta opened his mouth to laugh something cruel. Naruto snapped his arm at the elbow. There was no wind up. There was no expression on his face. His small hand twisted once against the line of the joint, the way a person folds a sheet of paper to crease it. And the elbow gave out. The sound was wet and sharp at the same time, and it hit the wall and came back to them. And it was the sound that made Suka finally look up. Genta's scream came 2 full seconds later because his body did not understand what had happened to him yet. And the scream filled the dining hall and the hallway behind it, and the stairwell and the upper rooms, and children were out of their chairs and backing against the walls, and one of them was crying without knowing she had started crying, and Suka was standing, and Suka was moving. You little. She crossed the room in 4 strides with her hand already raised. Naruto was still sitting. He watched her come. He did not stand up. He did not flinch. When her palm swung down at his face, a full open-handed strike, the kind of strike this woman had given children in this building for 9 years, with no one in the village ever once asking her about it. He lifted his own hand and caught her wrist in the middle of the swing. His fingers were too small to wrap around it. They did not need to. They held. Suka's eyes went wide. She pulled against the grip. The grip did not move. Naruto stood. He was half her height. He pivoted his small body into the line of her arm, turned her momentum against her own shoulder, and brought his other hand up to her face. He did not strike her. He gripped her, palm to her cheek, fingers splayed across her jaw, thumb against the bone beside her eye. And he threw. The throw was not a shove. It was a launch. Suka went through the dining hall window. She took the sash with her. She took the frame. The glass broke in a single white burst that sprayed across the table and the floor and the food, and the wooden slats of the window splintered outward in long, pale wedges, and Suka went with them. Her body hurled through the opening with the speed of something leaving a catapult, not a child's arm. And for the half second she was airborne inside the hall, nobody in the room was breathing. Then the second story railing outside took her across the hip and spun her, and she was gone. And the sound that came up from the dirt of the orphanage courtyard 2 stories below was the sound of a grown woman hitting packed earth from height. A dense, awful thud with a scream wrapped around it, alive but broken open. The window frame was still raining splinters down into the garden when Naruto stepped up onto the sill. He did not look at the children. He did not look at Genta, still folded on the floor with an elbow that would never straighten right again. He dropped through the opening to the second story railing, caught it once, dropped to the first story overhang, and stepped off it into the courtyard. Suka was on her side in the dirt, shaking, glass in her hair, a piece of the window frame buried in the meat of her shoulder. She was still alive. She was still screaming. He walked past her. He did not hurry. He passed the edge of the courtyard fence. He passed the gate. He passed the lane where the orphanage staff kept their laundry strung up on wooden poles. He walked into the street. He did not run. He did not look back. He was 6 years old. He was never going back. Behind him, the orphanage noise kept getting louder, and it never reached him again. The first week on the street, he slept under the raised platform of a rice flour merchant's shop because the merchant left a crate there to keep stray dogs out of his stock. Naruto pushed the crate aside and went under it and pulled the crate back. He slept with his arms around his stomach because his stomach was what hurt the most. It was winter. The air by the river at 4 in the morning was the kind of cold that climbed into a child's bones and stayed. On the third night, an older boy found him under the platform and pulled him out by the ankle and demanded the handful of copper the merchant's wife had slipped him for sweeping the porch. Naruto gave it to him. He had not yet decided that he was done giving things up. That decision was still a week away. A week later, he was cornered behind the old bathhouse by 4 men in their 30s with a sake bottle between them. He did not recognize them by their faces. He recognized them by what they said. He had heard every one of those words in different mouths in the same tone since he could walk. They called him the thing he had been called 1,000 times. They took the sake bottle and broke it on the wall, and the shortest of them, a man with a fishhook scar under his left eye, opened Naruto's cheek with the broken edge in a single swipe, and blood ran down into his mouth and his shirt and the stones of the alley. He got up. They kicked him back down. He got up. The heat at the base of his skull came him again, heavier than last time, and he pulled it back down again because he was still 6 years old, and he was still under the idea that this was how the world worked, and there was no other working available to him. He curled up. They kicked until they were bored. Then they walked away. The shortest one turned back halfway down the alley and spat on him because the village had taught him that this was the thing you did to this specific boy, and he had been practicing his whole adult life. Naruto lay in the alley until the stones stopped being cold against his face, which meant his face was not as warm anymore, which meant he needed to stand up. He stood up. He wiped the blood off his mouth with the back of his wrist. He walked to the river. He washed the cut until it stopped bleeding. He did not cry. He had not cried since the dining hall. He had decided, without words, somewhere between the platform and the alley, that crying was a thing you did when you believed someone was coming. He no longer believed that. The second winter on the street was worse, and the Black Air Force energy, though he did not have that name for it yet, would not have that name for years, started surfacing without him calling for it. A drunk grabbed his hair in the market and lifted him off the ground. Naruto's small hand came up and closed on the drunk's forearm, and the drunk's forearm broke at the radius in the middle of the motion. And the drunk dropped him and fell to his knees screaming, and Naruto stared at the broken arm and felt nothing except a mild curiosity about the sound the bone had made inside the skin. A ramen shop owner tried to chase him out of the alley behind the shop with a cleaver. Naruto did not move. The ramen shop owner got within 3 steps, looked Naruto in the face, and turned around and went back inside. He did not throw away his leftover broth that night. He set a bowl outside the back door, covered, still warm. It was the first food anyone had set out for him in the village of Konoha since the day he was born. He ate it. He did not say thank you. He came back the next night. The bowl was there again. He ate it. He did not say thank you. This went on for 6 weeks. Then one day, the ramen shop owner stopped putting bowls out. Naruto found out later that 3 villagers had threatened the ramen shop owner's wife on the street over it. Naruto understood. He did not go back to that alley. By the time he was 8, he knew things about human bodies that no 8-year-old should have needed to know. He knew which joint in the knee gave out first when you turned a leg against its hinge. He knew that a strike under the floating rib with the right angle left a grown man unable to take a full breath for an hour. He knew that if you caught a wrist at the pulse point and pressed with your thumb at the right depth, the hand above that wrist stopped working for long enough to take whatever the hand was holding. He learned these things the way he learned everything, by having them done to him, then doing them back, then watching what held and what did not. The mob in the dead-end alley by the old bathhouse came when he was 8.5. He had been ducking into the alley to avoid a patrol of Anbu, not because he was afraid of Anbu, but because he had no interest in being questioned about a missing sack of potatoes. And when he turned the corner at the back, he found the alley blocked off. 7 men. One of them had a kunai. 2 of them had lengths of wood. One of them was the man with the fishhook scar under his left eye. The fishhook man smiled when he recognized Naruto. He smiled the way people smile when a long errand has finally put itself in front of them. "Demon," the fishhook man said, "you've gotten bigger." Naruto looked at him. He looked at the other 6. He looked at the walls of the alley, the height of the rooftops, the line of the gutter, the distance to the open end behind him where 2 more figures had stepped in to block the retreat. 9 men then. 9 grown men in an alley for an 8-year-old. He put his hands in his pockets. "I'm not taking this no more," he said. His voice was flat. There was no child bluff in it, no high wobble at the end. It was the voice of someone who had been saving that sentence for about a year without knowing it, and it had come out now, and it was done. The fishhook man's smile did not change. He came forward with the broken glass of a bottle in his hand, and 2 of the others came with him, and the rest of them came a step behind. It was not a fight. Naruto stepped sideways into the fishhook man's lead foot, caught the inside of the lead knee with his own shin, and the man's knee went the way knees go when you hit them from the wrong angle at the wrong time. The joint opened laterally. The tendon on the inside of the knee tore with a sound like a wet rope snapping, and the man folded straight down. Naruto caught the broken bottle out of his hand before he hit the ground and threw it backward behind him at head level into the throat of one of the men at the alley mouth. The man at the alley mouth went down with both hands to his neck. Naruto was already past the fishhook man and closing on the second man in the lead group, a heavy man with a length of oak. Naruto did not try to take the oak. He slid under the swing, caught the man's ankle as he passed, and lifted. A small child's body pulling at a grown man's weight should not have moved him, and it moved him. The energy came up through Naruto's shoulder blades and down into his grip, and the man went off his feet and slammed into the wall of the alley with his own ribcage, and the ribcage gave. The third man tried to grab him from behind. Naruto leaned forward, drove his head back into the man's face without looking, felt the nose break under his skull, pivoted in the grip, and drove his elbow down into the man's forearm between the wrist and the elbow. The forearm broke in 2 places. The man screamed. Naruto had already stepped past him. The fourth man threw his kunai. Naruto caught the blade on his own forearm, felt it bite into skin and hit bone, ignored it, crossed the remaining distance in 3 steps, and drove the heel of his hand up into the underside of the man's jaw. The man's head whipped back hard enough that his feet left the ground, and he landed on his back, and he did not get up. The 5th, 6th, and 7th men had started to back away. They had not been planning for this. They had been planning for a screaming demon child and a story they could tell their friends. They were not getting one. Naruto looked at them. His eyes were half-lidded. There was blood on his cheek that was not his, and blood on his forearm that was. "Your friend there?" he said, and he pointed at the fishhook man who was clutching at his destroyed knee. "He put a bottle across my face when I was 6. You remember him doing that? Any of you? You tell each other these stories?" None of them answered. Naruto walked over to the fishhook man. The fishhook man tried to scramble back. He could not. Naruto stood above him and lifted one foot and brought his heel down on the man's right wrist, the wrist of the hand that had held the bottle. The heel came down with the weight of the energy in it, and the wrist shattered, and Naruto did not stop pressing until he felt the grind of bone on stone through the skin. The fishhook man stopped screaming halfway through because his body had gone into the kind of shock that takes the voice first. Naruto stepped off him. He walked past the 5 still standing men, and they flattened themselves against the walls of the alley as he went. He reached the mouth of the alley. He looked back over his shoulder. The man he had thrown the bottle at was alive but gurgling. The man with the broken ribcage was breathing in short, wet hitches. The fishhook man was looking at his own wrist the way people look at something that used to be theirs. "You tell them," Naruto said to the 5 still standing. "All of them. I'm done running." He walked out of the alley. The fishhook man never used his right hand for anything again. The story went through the village, not in the way horror stories go, not with gasps, not with grandmothers warning children, but as something lower and flatter. Adults who had spat at the boy on sight 2 years ago did not spit at him anymore. They did not smile at him either. They looked at the ground when he came down the street. The patrols of drunks who had once hunted him in packs stopped going into the alleys at night. By the end of that year, the only people in Konoha who still tried to put hands on Naruto Uzumaki were the ones who had not gotten the message yet, and they stopped being that kind of person after one conversation with him, and the village, for the first time in his life, developed something around him that was not hatred. It was a kind of uncertainty. It was the feeling adults get when they realize the dog they have been kicking has grown past their knee. He joined the academy at 9. He did not enroll himself because he dreamed of being Hokage. That fantasy had burned out on the 3rd night of his 2nd winter. Somewhere under a bridge, somewhere between a hunger cramp and a dream about a bowl. He enrolled because the building had a roof and because he had decided, around his 9th birthday, that he wanted to understand what the system had been withholding from him. He had been sleeping inside an abandoned grain silo on the east edge of the village for 10 months. The silo had gaps in the wooden slats. The roof of the academy did not. He sat in the back row. He did not raise his hand. He did not ask questions. When the instructor asked him questions, he answered in 3 words or fewer, then went back to staring out the window. He passed every written exam without looking up from his desk for longer than 4 minutes. The first time he turned in a perfect score on a history test, the instructor pulled him aside after class, certain he had cheated. Naruto let the man finish his accusation. Then he recited the answers to the last 10 questions in order, including the dates and the name of the minor lord from the 3rd war that the instructor himself had forgotten was on the exam. The instructor did not pull him aside again. Iruka Umino was the only teacher who did not make the energy shift in Naruto's chest when the man walked into a room. Iruka did not speak over him. Iruka did not smile at him the way adults smiled at him when they wanted him to believe they were fine with his existence. Iruka looked at him the way Iruka looked at all the other students, and when Naruto answered a question correctly, Iruka said so, and when Naruto answered a question incorrectly, which happened maybe twice in 3 years, Iruka said that too. Naruto did not call this respect. He called it acceptable tolerance inside his own head, and he left it there. The comedy of the academy was the gap. There was a boy in his class named Inaho, who belonged to one of the minor clans, a clan that had been in the village since the first Hokage and had produced 14 shunin and 2 jonin over that span. And Inaho spoke about this record the way other boys spoke about their fathers. One afternoon in his second year, Inaho stood up during a group exercise and announced to the room at large that the Inaho clan had survived 3 civil wars. Naruto, who had been writing in his notebook at the back of the room, he kept a notebook always, and he filled it with observations nobody ever got to read, looked up for the first time in 20 minutes. Your clan's greatest victory was surviving their own infighting, Naruto said. That's not a legacy. That's a warning label. He went back to writing. The room went silent. Inaho stared at him. Inaho's jaw worked twice. Inaho sat back down and did not speak for the rest of the class. Iruka, at the front of the room, opened his mouth to correct the comment and realized halfway through the first syllable that he did not want to finish the sentence. He pretended he had been clearing his throat. The girl in the row ahead of Naruto turned around and stared at him with her mouth open. Naruto did not notice. He was writing down the date of the Second War's end for his own notes. He had not been trying to be mean. He had been answering a claim with what he thought of when he heard the claim. He did not understand why the room had gone quiet. He did not spend any time thinking about it. It happened again a week later. A girl in the front row told the class her mother had said the Uchiha were the strongest clan in the village. Naruto, without looking up, they were the strongest clan in the village, and now most of them are in the ground. That's what being the strongest in this village gets you. He went back to writing. The girl in the front row cried. Iruka pulled Naruto aside after class. Naruto let Iruka talk. Iruka explained with visible patience that sometimes the way you say things matters more than what you say, and that the girl's family had been close to the Uchiha, and that the comment had hurt her even though Naruto might not have intended it to. Naruto listened. When Iruka was done, Naruto said, "I'll try not to answer her questions next time." Iruka blinked. "That's not." "I wasn't lying to her," Naruto said. Iruka opened his mouth and closed it. "I know," he said after a long second. "I know you weren't." He let Naruto go. He went back to his desk and sat there for a long time with his hands folded on the edge. He had begun to understand something about the boy he had been assigned, and he had not yet decided what to do with the understanding. The day the teams were announced, Naruto sat in the back row and listened to Iruka read names off a list. Team 7, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Naruto Uzumaki. He did not react. He had been expecting his name with either Uchiha or Haruno based on the score sheets he had seen on Iruka's desk 2 weeks ago when he had walked past it on his way out of the room. He had not been expecting both. He adjusted. Sasuke was already staring out the window when Naruto sat down across from him at the meeting table. Sakura was smiling at Sasuke in a way that had nothing to do with Sasuke. Naruto looked at Sasuke once. He looked at Sakura once. He sat. "I don't know either of you," he said. "I don't trust either of you. I'm not carrying you and I'm not catching you. We are not friends. Do your job and I'll do mine." Sasuke's eyes moved from the window to Naruto's face. You don't want to know me, dead last." "I scored higher than you on the written," Naruto said. "You failed a map reading section that had the answers in the legend. You read at a 6th grade level. Your best subject in the academy was sulking." Sakura's mouth fell open. Naruto continued. "I'm not your rival. I'm not your teammate in any sense you grew up thinking the word meant. I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying this so you don't develop expectations that I will have to correct later." Sasuke stared at him for a long moment. Sasuke's jaw moved. Sasuke went back to the window. He did not have anything to say because every word Naruto had said was on his report card. Sakura found her voice. "Naruto, why would you?" "I'm not finished," Naruto said. "Your shrieking is louder than your taijutsu. Your diet is giving you the wrong body for field work. You memorize facts faster than anyone in our year, and you waste all of it on a boy who is planning to leave you. You should be embarrassed, that's all." Sakura did not cry. She stared at him. Her face went through 4 things in a row and landed on something that was not any of them. She looked down at her own hands. Naruto had gone back to his notebook. Kakashi Hatake arrived 43 minutes late. He opened the door with a book in his hand, eye lazy, and said, "My first impression of you all is, you're sort of dreary. Meet me on the roof." Naruto watched him over the top of his notebook. He was still watching him on the roof. He watched him through the entire first introductions exercise, which was a rehearsed performance, and he watched Kakashi deliver the likes, "I have a few dislikes, I have a few dreams, I haven't really thought about it" speech with the eye crinkle that always sold it. And he watched the speech land on Sakura, who smiled too late, and on Sasuke, who did not register it. And when Kakashi turned to him last and said, "Your turn, the kid with the face," Naruto did not move his eyes off Kakashi's. "Your father killed himself when the village turned on him," Naruto said, "and you've been carrying that long enough to make you useless. Your teammates died, and you've been calling that grief instead of failure ever since. You don't teach, you manage expectations. I don't respect you. I won't pretend to. If you're going to be useful to me, teach me something real. Otherwise, stop talking." Kakashi's eyes stopped crinkling. For a full 6 seconds, the man did not move. Sakura had stopped breathing. Sasuke had turned to look at Naruto with his whole head for the first time since the meeting began. Kakashi's visible eye went from lazy to still, and from still to something that had no name. He did not have a rebuttal. Every word Naruto had said was factually correct, and he and Naruto both knew it, and Kakashi did not yet know how this child had it, but the child had it. "Well," Kakashi said finally. His voice was softer than before. "Tomorrow. Training ground 3. Bell test. Don't eat breakfast. You'll throw up." He disappeared in a flicker of leaves. Naruto closed his notebook. He stood up and left the roof without looking at his teammates. The bell test was the only test Kakashi Hake had ever set up in which the bells were gone before he had finished describing the rules. Naruto had walked up to him during the setup monologue. He had not snuck. He had walked. Kakashi's good eye had been on the tree line, where he had just hidden 3 exploding tags as a distraction, and his mouth had been moving through the well-rehearsed speech about teamwork and the 2 bells and the loser goes back to the academy line that he used on every team. And Naruto had closed the distance in 9 steps across the open grass, lifted the bells off Kakashi's belt with 2 fingers on each, and walked back to where Sasuke and Sakura were standing. He had sat down cross-legged. He had waited for Kakashi to finish. Kakashi finished. Naruto held the bells up. There was a long pause. "You teach people to think performance means preparation," Naruto said. "A real sensei would have noticed someone walking up to him. You had your body in 1 place and your mind in 3. I took the bells the way a pickpocket takes a wallet." He set the bells down in the grass. "I don't want them. I'm not playing your game. I'm not here for your lesson. Whatever this test was supposed to teach me, teamwork or mistrust or humility, you should already know you can't teach me any of it, because I already know all 3, and I learned them without your help." He stood. He brushed the grass off his pants. He left the training ground. Sakura and Sasuke were still standing where they had been standing. Kakashi was looking down at the bells in the grass. Kakashi had nothing to say. He did not pass them that day. He did not fail them either. By the time he made the decision to report them as a team, Naruto was already 2 miles away, up in the rafters of the old grain silo, writing in his notebook. The first 2 weeks of Team 7 were D-rank missions, catching cats, pulling weeds, painting fences. Naruto did the work. He did not complain. He did not chat. He did not pretend to care about the cat. When Sakura tried on the 3rd day to strike up a conversation about the weather, Naruto looked at her the way someone looks at a dripping faucet and went back to carrying the crates. On the 5th day, Sakura, who had been building up to it for some time, who had been told by her mother at dinner the previous night that boys like Naruto were the kind of boys you had to put in their place, stopped him in the street as the team was walking back to the mission office. "I want you to know," she said, her voice loud enough that Sasuke, walking ahead, slowed down to listen without turning around. "I wish you weren't on this team. I wish Kakashi-sensei had passed us with someone else. Sasuke and I, we had a chance to be a real team, and instead we got stuck with you." Naruto stopped walking. He turned to face her. His hands were in his pockets. His head was tilted a fraction to the side, the way it always was when he was about to say something he had thought about before, but had not yet been asked about. "Your parents raised you to be decorative," he said. "You add noise to a team that needs weight. The love they wasted teaching you to be pleasant instead of capable. If that energy went to someone who needed it, Konoha would be harder to break. They made a mistake leaving you alive to stay soft." He said it the way someone reads a sign out loud. Sakura's face did not crumple. It emptied. The pink in her cheeks went away all at once, and her mouth half opened, and then her mouth closed, and then she stood there in the middle of the street with her hands at her sides, and she did not move. Sasuke, ahead of them, had fully stopped. He did not turn around. His shoulders had gone rigid. Naruto walked past her. He did not look at her. He caught up to Sasuke, and Sasuke started walking again without saying anything. And they went to the mission office and filed the paperwork together, and then they went home. Sakura did not speak to Naruto for 14 days. When she finally did, she caught him on the stairs outside the mission office one morning and said his name. She watched his face as she said it to see if he remembered. It was clear from his face that he did not. He had given the exchange on the street zero thought since it had happened. He asked her what she wanted. She did not know anymore. She said, "Never mind." He nodded and kept walking. Something in her spine, that morning, cracked and set wrong. She would spend the next year trying to understand what. Kakashi began teaching Sasuke the Chidori 6 weeks into Team 7's existence. He handed Naruto a scroll on basic wind nature transformation. The scroll was 2 years below the level Naruto could actually use. Kakashi delivered the scroll with a smile in his eye and a small speech about fundamentals and how the tall trees grow from the firmest roots. Naruto read the scroll. He set it on the table between them. He looked up at Kakashi. "You buried your father's memory under 30 years of guilt and turned it into a teaching method where some students matter more than others, so you can control who gets to hurt you when they die. You picked Sasuke because Sasuke looks like someone you used to know, and you gave me a children's scroll because if I stay weak, you don't have to feel anything when I don't come back from a mission. You should have died with your teammates. At least then it would have meant something. This scroll means nothing." He picked up his bag. He left training. He did not come back that day. Kakashi sat at the table and looked at the scroll for a long time, and when Sasuke arrived 20 minutes later for his private lesson, Kakashi was still sitting at the table. Kakashi canceled the lesson. He canceled the next one too. He did not show up to the third session after that. Sasuke waited in the training ground for 2 hours each time before going home. He did not ask what had happened. He had a sense, though he could not have put it into words, that something in the team had been broken in a way Kakashi did not know how to fix. And he filed the feeling somewhere he could use later. The morning Iruka visited the academy, a guest lecture thing he did sometimes for his old students, even though he was now teaching a new class, he found Team 7 in a seminar room doing a joint exercise on teammate values. Iruka, smiling, went around the room and asked each student what they looked for in a teammate. One student said loyalty. Another said skill. Another said trust. Naruto, at the back of the room, was writing in his notebook. He did not look up. "I hope Itachi finishes what he started with Sasuke," Naruto said. "At least then, I don't have to spend the next decade listening to someone breathe revenge at me while I'm trying to work." He finished his sentence in the notebook. The room went still. Sasuke's head moved the same way a door moves when the wind catches it. Iruka's mouth opened and did not close. Sakura was staring at Naruto. She had gotten very good at staring at Naruto by this point. The other students in the seminar, Hinata, Kiba, Shino, Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, were all frozen in their seats. Shikamaru, who had been sitting with his cheek on his palm, slowly raised his head and looked at Naruto with both eyes open for the first time anyone in the room had seen that week. Sasuke stood up from his chair. His hand was at his side. His knuckles were white. "Say that again." Naruto did not look up from his notebook. "I don't need to. You heard it. Say it to my face. Naruto turned a page in his notebook. He wrote a sentence. He closed the notebook. He stood up. He walked past Sasuke's desk without stopping and out of the seminar room. The door clicked shut behind him. Iruka cleared his throat. Iruka gave up. Iruka told everyone to turn to page 40 of their textbooks. Shikamaru, looking at the door Naruto had walked through, murmured under his breath, "Troublesome." He had meant it in the old Nara clan sense of the word, which in that clan meant, a variable has entered the problem that I have no existing solution for. Somebody asked Naruto in the hall one afternoon if he would save his teammates if they were in trouble on a mission. The question came from a girl in the year below him who had been writing a school paper on the value of comradeship. Naruto looked at her. "No," he said. "They won't save mine. I'm not running charity work." He walked past her. Nobody in the academy argued with him about the answer. Everybody in the academy remembered the alley stories, even if nobody had been there to see them. The C-rank mission to the Land of Waves was Tazuna's mission, and it became a B-rank mission 9 miles outside the village gate when the Demon Brothers came out of the puddle. Kakashi handled them. He did it in a way that was meant to impress his genin. Naruto watched him do it. Naruto watched Sasuke take a defensive stance over Tazuna and get praised for it. Naruto had not moved during the fight. He had seen the puddle on a cloudless day 40 seconds before the fight started, and he had already decided that Kakashi had seen it too and was going to let the fight happen for pedagogical reasons. He had been correct. He did not bring it up. He did not expect thanks. He did not expect to be asked why he had not moved. Nobody asked. Zabuza Momochi came out of the mist on the bridge the next day. The first thing Naruto felt when he heard the voice, that low, flat, uninterested voice coming through the mist with no ceremony to it, no posturing, nothing but a statement of who was there and what he intended to do, was a thing he had not felt in years. He felt recognition. Zabuza did not hate them. Zabuza was not performing. Zabuza wanted them dead because Zabuza had been paid to want them dead, and he said so. And he said it in the tone of a man describing a contract he intended to fulfill. When Kakashi revealed his Sharingan, Zabuza adjusted. When Kakashi brought him down in the water clone mirror, Zabuza was rescued by a hunter nin who wasn't a hunter nin, and the hunter nin, who was Haku, carried him away without speaking. Naruto watched them go. He did not say anything. He did not have to. Something in him had leaned forward for the first time in years. The days at Tazuna's house, training on the trees, Naruto did not use the energy. He had decided long ago that the energy was not for performances. He climbed the tree the way everyone else did. He reached the top on his third try. Kakashi nodded at him without smiling. Naruto did not nod back. He was watching the horizon for Zabuza, who he knew was coming. When the fight came on the unfinished bridge, in the fog, in the cold, he saw Haku first. Haku had built a dome of ice mirrors around Sasuke. The mirrors were beautiful. Haku was inside every one of them at once, and none of them. Senbon flashed through the air in dozens, in hundreds, drawing blood from Sasuke's arms and shoulders and thighs, and Sasuke was trying to track Haku's movement with eyes that had not yet learned to track that kind of movement. Naruto stepped into the dome. He had not been invited. He had not been asked to help. He had stepped through the gap between two mirrors because the energy in his chest had moved its weight. Things were happening in front of him that he had not authorized. He did not like that. Haku's voice came from every mirror. "Why did you come in here?" Naruto looked up at the nearest mirror. "To see you. I will kill you both." "No," Naruto said, "you won't." The first volley of Senbon came. Naruto did not dodge. The energy under his skin took the Senbon like a wall takes hail. They did not sink. They bounced off his arms, his chest, his neck. He looked up into the mirror in front of him. Haku's eyes widened. "You are not normal," Haku said. "Neither are you," Naruto said. "Get out of the mirror." Haku did not get out of the mirror. Haku threw another volley. Naruto walked through it, stepped forward, and pressed his palm flat against the mirror itself. The mirror did not break. The mirror held. Naruto leaned his head against it. He did not smile. He did not frown. "I don't want to kill you," he said. "I don't want to hurt you. You're the second person in my life I've ever respected in a fight. The first one is somewhere on this bridge right now, not winning against my sensei. Step out of the mirror. We're done here. Haku was silent for a long moment. Naruto's hand stayed on the glass. I cannot, Haku said at last. I serve him. I know, Naruto said. That's why I respect you. Haku's eyes changed. What happened next was something none of them talked about afterward. Naruto pressed, not against the mirror, but through it. The energy under his skin reached outward the way water reaches through cloth, and Haku, inside the mirror, felt the pressure as a hand closing lightly on their ridge from the inside. It did not hurt. It said, I am here. I could be closer. Step out. Haku stepped out. The mirrors fell. Sasuke, bleeding on the ground, watched them fall without understanding what had ended the fight. Haku stood in front of Naruto on the bridge. The mask came off. Haku's face was young and tired. Finish it, Haku said. No, Naruto said. Then I will go kill the old man. Zabuza's contract. No, Naruto said. Zabuza is already finishing his contract. Kakashi is about to put his hand through him. You know this. I know this. You want to run at Kakashi to take the Chidori instead. Haku's face moved. I'm telling you not to. He is the only one who... I know, Naruto said. I know what he is to you. I know what he did for you. Listen to me. I'm going to ask you one thing, and then I'm not going to ask you anything else. If I kill the man who hired Zabuza right now with my own hands and make the contract obsolete, would you come with me? Haku stared at him. Come with you where? Mist, Naruto said. Someday, not today, someday, when I go to end the war. It was the first time Naruto had said the sentence out loud to anyone. He did not know he was going to say it. He had said it. He did not take it back. Haku did not answer for a long moment. Then Haku said, Zabuza would never. And that was when the Chidori sound started up behind them, and Naruto turned his head, and Zabuza was sprinting through the mist at Kakashi with a sword, and Kakashi had his hand full of lightning, and Haku moved. Haku was fast. Naruto was faster. Naruto caught Haku by the back of the robe in mid-leap and set him down on the bridge with the same motion a man uses to set down a small child. Haku's eyes went wide. Haku looked at Naruto's face. Don't, Naruto said. And then Naruto moved across the bridge, through the mist, past Kakashi, past Zabuza. The energy surfacing at his shoulder blades, black as oil, black as iron, crackling in thin lines along his arms. And he hit Kakashi's wrist on the downward line of the Chidori and redirected the lightning into the wooden planks of the bridge. The bridge cracked. Kakashi stumbled. Zabuza stopped mid-run. Naruto stood between them. He looked at Kakashi. Not him, Naruto said. Kakashi's visible eye was very wide. Not him, Naruto said again. The contract is already broken. Gato hasn't paid. Gato is coming here with his men to kill Zabuza and save himself the money. Any minute now. Stand down like everybody. Stand down. Zabuza, breathing hard, stared at the boy who had just come between him and a hidden leaf jonin. The mist was thinning. You could already hear, at the far end of the bridge, the first rumble of a small army. Boots on planks, laughter, the jingle of money belts, the sound of a man who was not a shinobi coming to watch shinobi die. Gato arrived with 200 men. He walked to the edge of the fight. He looked at Zabuza, breathing in the mist, and he laughed out, and he walked up to Zabuza's body. Zabuza, who had taken a dozen senbon in the effort of moving, who was holding himself up on his sword, and he kicked Zabuza's side like a prop on a stage. This is what I paid for, Gato said. Look at it. Look at this bandaged freak. You couldn't even. Naruto put his hands in his pockets. He walked into the crowd. The energy came up black and total. It did not flare. It did not roar. It came up under his skin like ink rising through paper, and his eyes went half-lidded. And he moved into the army the way water moves into sand. Not stopping, not rushing, taking apart everything in his path. He did not speak. He did not announce a jutsu. He did not need one. The first man swung a sword. Naruto caught the blade on the back of his hand, slid under it, and drove his elbow into the man's sternum hard enough to lift the man off the planks. The second man had a spear. Naruto closed the spear's length in one step, took the shaft out of the man's hands, and broke the man's forearm with his own weapon. The third, fourth, fifth, sixth men came in together. Naruto did not see them as six. He saw them as angles. He stepped between two of them, used one as a pivot to swing his leg around into a third, rode the third's falling body into the fourth, and came up off the fourth's shoulder with a palm strike into the fifth's face. The sixth had a crossbow. He fired it. The bolt hit Naruto in the thigh. Naruto did not look down. He pulled the bolt out with one hand, flipped it, and threw it back through the same crossbow into the user's chest. The army had been laughing. The army stopped laughing. Naruto kept walking. He walked through the army. He did not run. He did not fight harder than he needed to. Men broke against him the way waves break against a rock, and he did not hurry because he did not have to, because he had decided before he took his first step that none of them were going home walking. Gato was at the rear of the crowd. Gato was on his cane, shouting at his men to hold the line, shouting at them to kill the boy. And the crowd was thinning, and Gato was backing up, and Naruto was still walking. And when Naruto finally reached him, Gato raised his cane to strike, and Naruto caught the cane and broke it in his fist like a dry branch. Gato fell to his knees. Gato's mouth opened. Gato tried to speak. Naruto looked down at him. He did not say anything. He reached down, took Gato's right hand, and closed his own fingers around it. He squeezed once. 3 of Gato's fingers separated from the rest of his hand in a single motion. Gato screamed. Naruto let the hand fall. Then he bent down, put one hand under Gato's jaw, lifted him by the bone of his face, and threw him, not across the bridge, but up one-handed, 30 feet into the air. Gato came down on the planks of the bridge with his back first, and the sound his back made was the sound of a thing that was not going to walk again. Gato was alive. Gato would never stand on his own feet. His spine had given up its cooperation in a single contact. The beach went quiet very fast. Naruto stood in the aftermath and looked at where Zabuza had fallen. Zabuza had taken the chance to crawl himself across the planks, dragging his body on his elbows, and reached Haku, and Haku was in his arms, and Zabuza's face, the face that had been carved in stone for the whole fight, was not stone anymore. Tears were running openly down the sides of Zabuza's wrapped face and into the bandages. He was holding Haku to his chest. Haku was alive, blinking up at him, alive because Naruto had stopped him from running at the Chidori. Zabuza was shaking. Naruto walked to them. He knelt down. "You fought for something real," he said low, no ceremony. "That counts." Zabuza looked up at him. Zabuza looked at him for a long time. "Who are you?" Zabuza said. "Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said. "Someday I'm coming to Mist. When I do, if you're still alive, I want you on the bridge when I cross it." Zabuza stared at him. Zabuza said nothing for a long moment. Then he nodded once, a short, shallow nod, and it was the first nod that man had given another man in 11 years that meant what nods used to mean. Naruto stood up. He walked past the bodies on the bridge. Sasuke was alive, propped against the railing, watching him come without any expression. Sasuke himself could have named. Sakura was at Tazuna's side with her hands over her mouth. Kakashi was standing where Naruto had left him, hand lowered, Chidori long gone, and Kakashi was watching Naruto walk back across the bridge, like a man watching a thing he had read about in a book and never expected to see. Naruto did not say anything to any of them. He took off his jacket and sat down on the bridge planks. His right knuckles were split and the bone beneath was bruised into his wrist. The thigh wound was already closing under the energy, but it would be a week before it was clean. He filed the paperwork for the mission that night with his left hand. He did not tell anyone what he had decided on the bridge. Back in Konoha, the Chunin exam nominations came within the month. The written exam started at 10 in the morning. The room was designed to break Genin. The rules were designed to force them to cheat without getting caught. The 10th question was a psychological trap designed to make them choose between safety and ambition. Naruto understood the test design 3 seconds after reading the rules. He picked up his pencil. He answered questions 1 through 9 by brute memory and deduction, including 2 questions he was certain the proctor had deliberately written incorrectly to see which teams had infiltrated the test setter's office. He finished at the 8-minute mark. He put his pencil down. He folded his arms on the desk, put his forehead on his arms, and went to sleep. Sakura, 2 rows ahead, kept looking back at him through the first hour to make sure he was still breathing. He was still breathing. Sasuke, beside her, used his Sharingan to copy a nearby prodigy's answers. Naruto slept through the rest of the test. When Ibiki Morino called the 10th question and offered the out, the chance to drop and never take the exam again, Naruto was still asleep. Ibiki watched him sleep for about 10 seconds. Then Ibiki made a note on his clipboard, and Ibiki did not call on Naruto. The Forest of Death was the second part. Team 7 entered through Gate 12. Naruto took one look at the map they had been given, ignored it, and walked into the forest the way he walked through any forest, which was straight ahead. Sasuke and Sakura followed. They had gotten used to following. The sound team cornered them on the second day. Sakura was alone, trying to hold a defensive perimeter over the unconscious bodies of Sasuke and Naruto, who had been hit with Orochimaru's curse mark and Orochimaru's chakra release respectively, though Sasuke's had taken and Naruto's had not, because the energy in Naruto's chest had met Orochimaru's chakra and pushed it out through his skin in the first hour, the way the body pushes out a splinter. Naruto was sleeping off the incursion. He would be up soon. He was up sooner than Sakura expected. The sound team's leader, Dosu, the one with the melody arm, drew back for a strike that would have ended the pink-haired girl. Sakura had her kunai in her hand. Her hand was shaking. Naruto opened his eyes. He watched for 3 seconds. The energy moved before his brain did. Not because the energy was warm about the girl, not because the energy had changed its opinion of her, but because something was happening in front of Naruto Uzumaki that he had not authorized, and the math of the situation was already finished inside him. He was between Dosu and Sakura before the next breath landed. Dosu's melody arm came forward. Naruto caught the arm at the wrist and did not let go. He turned, letting the sound waves pass behind his shoulder into open air. He had understood the device the moment he heard the hum, and with his other hand he reached up and drove his thumb through the membrane of the device itself. The humming stopped. Dosu stared at him. Naruto broke the wrist. Dosu went down. Kin? The bell girl, threw Senbon. Naruto caught 2 out of the air and sent them back to her throwing hand. They went through the back of her hand and pinned it to a tree. Zaku, the one with the air tubes, brought his arms up to fire his Zankuha. Naruto was on him. Naruto caught Za's forearms, flipped them palm up and held them in the air, pointed at the sky. "You're gonna fire?" Naruto said. "Do it." Zaku stared at him. "Fire." Zaku fired. The blast went straight up. The recoil tore the tubes out of Zaku's own arms from the inside. Zaku's scream was the loudest thing in the forest for about a minute. Naruto dropped him. Dosu was trying to crawl away with his broken wrist. Naruto walked over to him, lifted him by the collar, and looked him in the face. "You have the scroll," Naruto said. "Give it to me." Dosu gave him the scroll. Naruto dropped him. He walked back to Sakura. Sakura was still holding her kunai. Her hand was still shaking. Naruto looked at her. He did not look angry. He looked tired. "You need to be better than this," he said. "Not for my sake, just in general." He turned and went to Sasuke's body. Sasuke was beginning to stir. Naruto crouched over him and watched the curse mark pulse on his neck, watched the purple ink of it beat under the skin, and for a second the energy in his own chest considered reaching for that mark and pulling it out the way a man pulls a splinter. He did not. He had decided, somewhere in the back of his head, that Sasuke's curse mark was not his problem. He stood up. He shouldered the extra scroll. "Let's go." Sakura did not speak the rest of the way to the tower. The preliminaries were held in a closed arena inside the tower because too many genin had survived the second round. The field had to be trimmed. Sarutobi, in his Hokage robe, stood above the arena. A small gallery of Jonin sensei and clan representatives stood along the upper rail. The screen above the arena began to cycle random names. It landed on the first match. Naruto's name did not come up first. It came up fourth. He sat on the upper walkway in silence through the first 3 matches. He watched them all. He learned what he could from each one. What a Nara shadow possession looked like from the outside when the other party knew it was coming. What a Kurenai Genjutsu did to a fighter's breathing pattern. How Choji's body expansion jutsu compressed the oxygen in the ring when it spun. He kept notes. Not in his notebook, in his head. He did not bring the notebook to the arena. Kiba Inuzuka stepped into the ring. Kiba had been waiting for his match. He had been bouncing on the balls of his feet in the gallery for 40 minutes. He had Akamaru on his head. He had a grin that said, someone was about to find out why the Inuzuka had produced 6 Jonin in the last century, and that someone was in this arena. And the Uzumaki kid had been running his mouth in the academy for years, and Kiba was going to shut it. Kiba's name came up on the screen. Naruto's name came up opposite. Kiba dropped from the gallery into the arena with Akamaru beside him. He stretched his arms behind his head as he walked. He cracked his neck. He smiled at Naruto across the arena and spread his arms wide, the way you do when you want the whole audience to see the performance you are about to put on. "Hey, dead last," Kiba called out. "Let me give you a tip before we start. I'm gonna make this quick so you can go back to being nobody. Akamaru and me, we've been training with my mom, full clan level, and if you'd been paying attention in class, you'd know the Inuzuka are the fastest." Naruto had started walking across the arena at the word dead. He was closing the distance before Kiba finished the word fastest. Kiba noticed at the word and me, but by then it was too late to drop into his opening stance. He half registered that Naruto was moving, shifted his weight, and did not finish the shift. Naruto's foot came up. It was a snap kick, chakra-laced, rising from the ground with the energy compressed under the heel and through the instep, and it landed in exactly one place, between Kiba's legs. The impact rang across the arena. The sound was high and awful, and it traveled off the walls and came back to itself, and Kiba, who had been in the middle of his entrance monologue, who had not yet set a single foot into a fighting stance, who had been holding Akamaru in one arm like a show dog, folded. He did not fall. He folded. His knees went first, then his hips, then his shoulders. Akamaru dropped onto the ground beside him and made a sound that was not a bark. Kiba's face went through 5 colors in under 2 seconds and landed on one that had no name. His mouth was open. No sound came out. He could not make the sound come out. The arena held. For 3 full seconds, nobody in the gallery moved. Nobody in the arena moved. The proctor stood with his hand half raised. Akamaru whimpered, soft, staring at his partner on the floor. Naruto looked up at the proctor. "I'm done," he said. "Who's next?" In the upper gallery, Shikamaru Nara, who had been watching with his cheek on his palm, slowly straightened. He did not take his eyes off the arena. His mouth stayed closed for a long moment. "Troublesome," he said very low, to nobody. Guy, standing beside Kakashi on the Jonin walkway, opened his mouth. Guy closed his mouth. Guy did this twice. Kakashi had his eye on the floor of the arena and did not move. Hana Inuzuka, Kiba's older sister, was staring down at her little brother with an expression that had no label. Sume Inuzuka, in the clan box, had put her hand over her mouth. Her hand was not hiding a gasp. It was hiding a laugh. A low, involuntary Inuzuka pack laugh. A laugh that had spent 10 years waiting for Kiba to learn a lesson and had apparently arrived all at once. She turned her face away. She did not succeed. The proctor cleared his throat. Winner by knockout. Uzumaki. Naruto. Medical men came down into the arena. They lifted Kiba onto a stretcher. He was making a sound now. It was a thin, steady sound, somewhere between a cough and a whine. Akamaru trotted along beside the stretcher, pressing his nose into Kiba's ankle. Naruto walked off the arena floor. He climbed back up to the gallery. He went to his seat. He sat down. Sakura leaned over. "Naruto, that was... you didn't even..." "I was done," Naruto said. He was going to talk for another minute. "That's not what..." "Next match." He did not look at her. The screen cycled. He watched the next fight. In the Kaj gallery, Sarutobi sat in his chair and looked at the floor of the arena for a long time with his pipe unlit in his hand. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a thing he had been ignoring for 4 years, a thing he had been actively ignoring, a thing he had written letters to himself about and not sent, surfaced, and he did not yet have the name for it. He would have the name for it in an hour. The month between the preliminaries and the finals was the month Naruto trained alone. He did not accept a sensei. Kakashi had offered. Kakashi had offered twice. The second time, Kakashi had said, almost softly, that he could take Naruto for the month and teach him things he had not taught Sasuke. Naruto had looked at him. "You already picked," Naruto had said. "Don't move the pieces after the game is over." He walked away from Kakashi. He trained in the forest outside the western wall. He trained with no audience. He did not sleep in the village at all that month. He slept under the stars in a clearing he had found 3 years ago when he had been 12, and the village had still had patrols that sometimes came after him. He worked on the chakra removal technique. He had not yet named it that. He had been building it for 2 years, quietly in his own body, on small animals first. A field mouse, a stray cat that had been about to die anyway, an injured rook. The ability to reach the energy inside himself outward into another living body and find the meridian lines that made up the chakra network. The energy could interface with chakra networks. It could not destroy them. He had learned that the mouse's network did not stay broken when he tried to tear it. It knit itself back together within hours, but it could pull them. It could lift them. It could hold them. He had never tested it on a person. He was going to test it on a person in the arena. The finals began on the day the village had been preparing for 2 months. The upper gallery of the Chunin exam arena was full. The third Hokage sat beside the fourth Kazekage in the Kage box. The Jonin gallery was packed. The genin who had made it through the preliminaries stood on the floor at attention. The crowd in the stands filled every seat and overflowed into the standing rails. The first match was called Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji Hyuga. Neji walked to the center of the arena with the walk of a man who had been waiting for this for 3 weeks. Naruto walked to the center of the arena with his hands in his pockets. Neji stopped 10 feet from him. Neji's Byakugan veins had not yet risen. Neji tilted his head slightly and looked at Naruto the way a doctor looks at a patient whose prognosis has already been decided. "Before we begin," Neji said, "I would like you to understand something." Naruto waited. "Fate," Neji said, "is a current. It moves in one direction and it moves through all of us, and we do not choose the direction. Some of us are born main branch. Some of us are born branch. Some of us are born into clans that define themselves by the power of their name, and some of us are born without a name at all. You are the second kind. You were born in the orphanage. You were thrown from it. You were raised in the street. You had no clan. You had no father. You had no mother in any way the village recognized. You have no future. I am telling you this not to insult you. I am telling you this so you understand that what happens to you in the next 2 minutes is not a matter of effort or of skill. It is the current. It is what was going to happen to you the day you were born. No strategy of yours will change it. No training will alter it. You will fall. The lowborn fall. It is the rule." He finished. Naruto stood there with his hands in his pockets. For a long moment he did not speak. Then he spoke. "I was left in an orphanage," he said. "Got thrown out. Survived 7 years on the streets alone. The village tried to kill me before I could do long division. Tell me more about destiny, Hyuga. I want to make sure I understand your framework." He began walking forward. Neji's Byakugan activated. The veins rose around his temples in the shape they always took. He dropped into the Hyuga opening stance. 8 trigrams, feet set, palms flat. His chakra network lighting up across Naruto's field of vision through the specialized sight that had taken him 14 years to master. He saw Naruto's chakra network through the Byakugan. He saw the Tenketsu. He saw the primary nodes along the torso. He saw the secondary meridians along the arms. He did not see what was under the chakra network. Black lines, thick ones, ropes of something that was not chakra and was not chakra, running along the inside of Naruto's body in a parallel infrastructure the Hyuga had never seen, had never been taught, had no name for. For a half second, Neji hesitated. The Byakugan was a white field sight. Everything was supposed to be visible. This was not visible in the way chakra was visible. It was there, but it did not read right. It was like looking at an eclipse. Naruto kept walking. Neji adjusted and committed. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. His hands moved. The first strike, a 2-finger palm to Naruto's left shoulder, landed on the Tenketsu at the deltoid. It should have sealed the channel for an hour. It did not. The energy absorbed the strike and rerouted the chakra through the black infrastructure that the Byakugan could not read. Neji felt the seal fail in his fingertips, the way you feel a button push that does not connect. He had no time to consider it. He committed again. 2 palms. The Tenketsu at the chest and the Tenketsu at the side. 4 palms. The rib cage. 8 palms. The arms. 16 palms. The shoulders and the neck. On the count of the 32nd palm, Neji realized what was happening. None of them were sealing. None of them were landing in any sense the Hyuga technique was designed for. Naruto had been hit 32 times by strikes that should have reduced him to a paralytic, and he was still walking forward, and his face had not changed, and his hands were still in his pockets, and the black lines under his skin were getting brighter, and the Byakugan was starting to hurt. Neji did not stop. Neji's pride was on the floor with his technique. On the count of 33 palms, the strike aimed at the heart meridian. Naruto's hand came out of his pocket. He caught Neji's outstretched hand at the wrist. Neji's body stopped the way a body stops when a physical fact becomes impossible. The strike had been at full commit speed. Naruto had moved his arm exactly the distance the strike needed to be stopped. Neji felt his own kinetic energy absorbed into the grip and canceled as if his arm had hit a wall set 3 inches in front of his fingertips. Naruto squeezed once, 2 fingers and a thumb. The bones in Neji's hand splintered with the sound of green wood snapping on a cold morning. The sound was short and sharp, and it carried across the arena in the silence that had started falling during the Hyuga speech and had only gotten deeper. Neji's Byakugan widened. Not in the technique sense, in the human sense. His eyes went as wide as they physically could go. Naruto did not let go. He pulled Neji forward by the broken hand, pulled him off his feet, pulled him across the space between them in a single jerk of his forearm, pivoted inside the line of Neji's body, planted his own back foot, and drove Neji headfirst into the wall of the arena. The wall was cut stone, 3 feet thick, reinforced with seals. The first impact cracked it. A spider web of white fracture ran up from the point of impact to the top of the arena trim. Neji's head inside Naruto's grip had gone limp for a half second. Naruto did not wait. He pulled Neji back and drove him into the wall a second time. The crack became a crater. The stone of the wall opened inward around Neji's head and shoulders. Pieces of granite the size of a fist broke off and fell into the arena floor. Dust rose. Naruto pulled him back. Third impact. The crater deepened. A piece of the wall's upper trim came loose. A chunk of stone the size of a barrel fell into the arena with a low thud. Fourth impact. The wall stopped being a wall in that section. It was an open wound in the architecture of the arena. Chunks of stone clattered to the floor. A segment of the support frame bent visibly. Dust clouded the bottom of the arena up to Naruto's knees. Fifth impact. Neji hung from Naruto's grip by the broken hand. Byakugan still active the way an alarm stays on in a building that is already gone. His feet dragged on the arena floor. His head was down. His breath was coming in short pulls. The back of his skull had a laceration visible through his hair. His right shoulder was out of its socket. The arena had gone religious silent. Up in the Kaji box, Sarutobi's pipe was on the arm of his chair. He had not picked it up. He had forgotten for about a minute that it was there. Up in the Jonin gallery, Rock Lee had pressed both of his hands flat over his own face. His shoulders were shaking. His shoulders had not been shaking this way in his entire life. He was not crying. He was not laughing. He did not know what he was doing. Mike Guy, beside him, had opened his mouth to say something 3 separate times and had each time closed it. For the first time in the career of Mike Guy had nothing. The youth of this match had overwritten every sentence he had ever prepared. Down in the Hyuga clan box, Hiyashi Hyuga's hands were flat on his knees. His face had gone the color of old ash. He was not breathing through his nose. His mouth was slightly open. Beside him, Hanabi, 10 years old, staring down at the arena, had not blinked in a minute. In the stands, a certain man disguised as the 4th Kazekage, who was not 4th Kazekage, who was a man with a snake inside his skin and a plan inside his plan, had begun to write on a small scroll hidden inside his sleeve. His hand was moving fast. His face was doing something it had not done in years. It was smiling. Not the performance smile, the full-face smile. The one he had not been caught using since before his exile. Naruto dropped Neji. Neji folded to the ground like laundry off a line. Naruto stood over him for a moment. Then he crouched. He brought his free hand between them. He flattened his palm. He drove the palm, chakra-laced, with the energy running thin and black along the bones of his fingers, up between Neji's legs in a single flat strike. The sound that came out of the arena was ungodly. Not a scream. The throat does not make screams for that kind of input. Neji made a noise that had no vowel, had no consonant, had no shape that any language on the continent included. It was 2 seconds long. It ended with him going completely rigid and then completely soft. In the upper gallery, Rock Lee's hands did not come off his face. Guy said, very softly to nobody, "Neji." Tenten, beside them, had a kunai in her hand that she did not remember drawing and had no idea what she was planning to do with. In the Hyuga box, an older Hyuga elder stood halfway up from his seat. He was a man in his 70s, a man who had not shown emotion in public since the death of his wife 40 years ago. His mouth was moving. He was not making sound. Naruto stayed crouched beside Neji. He looked up at the arena. His eyes went from the gallery to the Kage box and stopped there for exactly 2 seconds. Sarutobi met his eyes. Something passed between them that did not fit in a word. Naruto looked back down at Neji. He reached out. He took Neji's other wrist, the unbroken one. The black Air Force energy came up along his arm and into his hand and out through his fingers into Neji's skin in thin black threads. The threads traveled through Neji's body like ink running up a wick. The threads reached the nodes of the chakra network. The threads caught on the nodes the way a fish hook catches on fabric. Naruto lifted his hand slowly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then it began. Pale blue-white light surfaced along Neji's skin. Lines of it, like veins at first, then more than veins, then the structure under the veins, then the entire infrastructure of his shinobi body. Every meridian, every tenketsu, every primary and secondary pathway rising to the surface of his skin like something in him was surrendering and coming up for air. The light did not stop at his skin. It kept rising. The arena watched, frozen, as Neji Hyuga's entire chakra network, every line of it, every branching pathway, every node and hub and channel that made him a shinobi, pushed up through his skin and lifted 3 inches off his body into the air above him. A full, detailed, ghostly second skeleton of pale blue-white light, every pathway visible, every node glowing softly, hovered above the flesh that used to contain it. The extraction did not hurt Neji. He did not scream. He could not move. His body did not know what to do with itself when everything it ran on was somewhere else. His Byakugan, still active, was now looking up at itself, at its own network floating above it, the very eyes that had been used to read everyone else's networks now reading its own from the wrong side. He lay on his back in the dust of the broken wall and stared up at the web of light above him and did not speak. Naruto held one corner of the web in his hand like a kite string. The arena was beyond silent. The crowd had stopped being a crowd. It was 10,000 individual people holding their breath at the same time. Up in the Kage box, Sarutobi had stopped moving entirely. The disguised Orochimaru was writing so fast the tip of his brush was trembling. Hiyashi Hyuga's hands had come off his knees and were at his mouth. He was not making sound. He had not made sound in 90 seconds. Naruto looked at Neji. His voice was flat. "This is everything you are as a shinobi. Your entire network. Every vein. I'm holding it," he paused. "The main branch, the branch family, the caged bird seal, all of it runs through here. Funny thing about fate, Hyuga, it's very fragile when you're holding it." He did not lift his hand higher. He pressed, lightly, with his thumb against the central hub of the floating network, the primary node in the floating torso image, the one corresponding to the heart meridian on Neji's physical body. Neji's body, on the floor, seized rigid. His jaw locked. His spine arched. Every nerve in his body fired at once, not from injury, because there was no injury, but because his chakra network, while external, had been interfaced at its hub. The signal his brain received was everything, everywhere, all at once. For 3 full seconds he did not breathe. His hands were claws at the end of his arms. His Byakugan was pulsing on and off in waves. Naruto released the thumb. The network settled back into Neji's body like poured water returning to a glass. The light along the meridians flowed back down through the skin. The pathways reintegrated. The tenketsu closed. Within 4 seconds, Neji's chakra network was entirely back inside him, intact, undamaged, exactly as it had been. He was not permanently harmed. He was lying in rubble, completely unable to stand. Naruto stood. "Next time I pull it," he said, "I sever the central line. You'll never use chakra again." He stepped over Neji. He walked toward the center of the arena. The dust from the broken wall was still falling around him. The proctor was staring at him. The proctor's mouth was open. "Call it. Naruto said. The proctor blinked. The proctor called the match. Winner, Uzumaki Naruto. The arena did not clap. The arena did not boo. The arena did not know what to do. There was no template for the sound 10,000 people make when they have seen something they do not have a framework for. 10 seconds passed. 20. A single person in the lower stands, an older woman, no idea who she was, no idea what she was reacting to, began to clap. The clap was hesitant. It did not catch. It died. Naruto walked out of the arena. He went up the stairs to the Genin gallery. He sat down. He looked at the next match cycle on the screen without any visible interest. Sakura beside him was not looking at him. She was looking at her own hands. Her hands were shaking. She was not hurt. In the Kage box, Sarutobi finally closed his mouth. He picked up his pipe. He did not light it. He set it back down. In the disguised Kazekage's seat, Orochimaru slid the scroll he had been writing on into his sleeve. He turned his head to the side. He met Sarutobi's eyes across the box, briefly, with the face of a foreign Kage politely noting a surprising event, and his own face was composed. Under the composure, he was thinking about how to get Naruto Uzumaki out of Konoha alive. He did not have to worry. The invasion started 40 minutes later. The feathers fell. The genjutsu swept the stands. People who were not under protection slumped forward in their seats. The disguised Kazekage seized Sarutobi in a shunshin and threw him to the rooftop of the Kage booth, and the four Sound Four began their barrier. Snakes came over the walls. The village klaxons began. Somewhere to the west, a giant snake was coming in through the outer wall. Naruto was awake. The energy had burned off the feather genjutsu in his system before it had landed. He stood up in the gallery. He looked at Sakura. Sakura was asleep in her seat, slumped. He stepped over her. He went down to the arena floor. Kakashi appeared beside him. Kakashi's Sharingan was uncovered. Naruto, I know. The Kage, I see him. Don't go after Orochimaru. Sarutobi has him. I wasn't going to. Naruto looked out across the arena. Sand shinobi were pouring into the arena through the broken wall section he himself had made 20 minutes ago. 3 jonin were already dead. The sound attack on the northern wall was visible through the stadium's high windows as a column of smoke. This was not his fight. Not in the sense anyone in the village meant by fight, but things were happening in front of him that he had not authorized, and the math of that was already finished in his chest. He walked into the invasion. He did not use a summoning. He did not have a summoning contract. He did not need one. He walked through the arena floor and into the battle in the streets, and for the next 2 hours he took apart the Sand Invasion Force team by team, room by room, with the energy crackling dense and black along his arms. He did not fight the Sound Four. He did not attack Orochimaru. He did not kill Gaara. When he found Gaara in the forest outside the village with Shukaku half emerged, and he did find him because he had tracked the sand, he looked at the boy who looked too much like himself, stared at him for a long moment and said, before Gaara could commit to the transformation, "Not today." Gaara stared at him. The sand around Gaara's body trembled. "I see you," Naruto said. "You are not my problem right now. You will not be my problem later either. Go home. Tell your village they lost this one. Be ready. Someday I'm going to come collect you and everyone like you, and I am going to pull that thing out of you, and you are going to thank me for it." Gaara's mouth opened and closed. The sand around him lowered. Shukaku pulled itself back under the skin. Temari and Kankuro, coming up behind Gaara, stopped in the tree line and did not approach. Gaara, staring at Naruto, did something he had not done since he was 4 years old. He nodded. Once. Shallow. Naruto nodded back. He walked past them. They let him pass. He went back to the village. The invasion was winding down. Sarutobi had survived the fight with Orochimaru, which surprised exactly one person in the village, and that person was Sarutobi. Orochimaru had escaped. The sand had retreated. The villagers were crawling out from under the rubble. The medics were running. The dead were being counted. Naruto walked through the wreckage. He walked past the medical tents. He walked past the Jonin command post. He walked into the Hokage tower. He did not stop at the secretary's desk. He went up the stairs. He opened the door to Sarutobi's office without knocking. The third Hokage was at his desk. His pipe was in his hand. He was not smoking it. 3 Jonin stood along the back wall: Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai. They had been discussing the invasion. They stopped discussing when the door opened. Naruto closed the door behind him. He walked into the center of the room. He stopped in front of the desk. "I'm leaving," he said. Sarutobi looked at him. "Where?" "Mist. The mist. There's a civil war there. Real people dying under a system that weaponizes children and drowns bloodlines it does not want. Same thing this village does, just with different paperwork. I respected 2 shinobi from that village more than I've respected anyone here. I'm going to end the war there myself." Sarutobi set his pipe down. He folded his hands on the desk. "Naruto, sit down." "No." "There are things about you that you don't know. Things about your parents." "I know my mother was Kishimoto Uzumaki of the Whirlpool," Naruto said. "I know my father was the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. I know he sealed the 9 tails in me on the night I was born. And I know he and my mother died in the process. And I know the village was told their son had died too, so that I could be given to the orphanage without the political complications of a Jinchuriki heir. I know you were in on the decision. I know Jiraiya knew and was told to stay away. I know Kakashi knew and was told not to approach. I know there are hundreds of people in this village who took an oath to the 4th Hokage and watched his son be spat on for 8 years and said nothing." Sarutobi's hands had gone very still on the desk. "How?" Sarutobi said. "I can read," Naruto said. "I've been in and out of the archives since I was 11. Sarutobi did not answer. "I'm not here for closure," Naruto said. "I'm not here for an apology. I'm not here to tell you I hate you. I don't. Hate is the word people use when they want something in return. I don't want anything in return. I'm telling you I'm leaving because I am. Because I owe this office one piece of paperwork on the way out. Because I've decided, as of about 19 minutes ago, that I will not be coming back through this gate as a leaf shinobi. Not this year, not next year, not ever." Kakashi took a half step forward. "Naruto?" "No." The word cut through the room. Naruto did not raise his voice. He did not turn his head. He only said the word, and something in the air of the office went still. Sarutobi took a long breath. "Naruto," he said, "if you walk out of this village without authorization, you will be a missing nin. You will be in the bingo books within a week. Hunter nin will be sent. I will not be able to call them off. You understand this." "I understand it." "Your team is not my team. They never were. Sakura will marry a merchant's son. Sasuke will leave the village before the end of this year to chase Itachi. Kakashi will go back to reading in trees. None of these are my problem." Kakashi's eye was on the floor. Sarutobi looked at him for a long moment. "Think of your future in Konoha, Naruto. You would be Chunin within the week, Jonin within 2 years. You could have the seat I am sitting in before you are 30. With what I just saw in that arena." "Hokage," Naruto said. "The word you used. Hokage. That is the word. That is the seat you are offering me. You think that is a prize. You think you are dangling the highest chair in the village in front of the orphan you failed, and you think the orphan will bite. Listen to me. You have been telling this village I was dangerous for years. You told the council. You told the elders. You told the civilian authorities. You told the Jonin. You were right. Good luck." He turned around. He walked to the door. He opened it. He walked through it. He closed it behind him. The door clicked. The sound of the latch engaging was the loudest sound in the Hokage Tower that evening. It was the loudest sound, in some sense, that Konoha had made in years. The 3rd Hokage sat at his desk in the lamplight and did not move. The pipe on his desk was cold. Kakashi, against the back wall, had his hand on the shelf behind him because he was not confident his legs would hold him if the hand came off. Asuma had taken the cigarette out of his mouth and was looking at the ember. Kurenai was looking at the door. For a long time, nobody in the room spoke. None of them knew how to categorize what had just walked out. None of them knew how to call it back. Outside, the sun was going down over the broken northern wall. Naruto Uzumaki, 15 years old, walked down the stairs of the Hokage Tower, out the front entrance, past the guards at the gate who had been given no order to stop him, and who did not stop him, through the cracked stone of the main street, past the shattered fruit stalls and the collapsed awnings of the market, past the ramen shop whose owner had set out bowls for him when he was 8. The owner was standing in his doorway, and he lifted his hand once, And Naruto lifted his back, past the academy where he had sat in the back row, past the gate of the orphanage where the window had long been repaired, past the alley where he had told 7 men he was not taking it anymore, and through the main gate of the village of Konohagakure, out onto the road, into the trees. He did not look back. The main gate closed behind him at sundown, on the normal schedule, without any extra ceremony. The 2 chunin on gate duty watched him go and did not move. They had not been told to. They would remember later that they had watched him go. They would not tell anyone for a long time that neither of them had been sure in the moment that he would have let them stop him if they had tried. The energy in his chest, as he walked out onto the road, settled into something it had not settled into before. It was not waiting anymore. It was moving. He had a direction. West to the coast, then north, then the mist. And after the mist, the rest of the map. He had the conclusion. He had had the conclusion since the bridge. The shinobi world was a machine. It took children and made weapons and called the process strength and heritage and duty. The tailed beasts were enslaved. The clans hoarded power and bloodlines and taught their children to protect it before they could choose anything else. The Kaise system was the machine's management layer. None of it could be reformed because the foundation was the problem. The 10 tails existed. He had read about it in the archive. There was a theory about its chakra scope. There was a theory about what could be done with a single being who controlled that scope. He did not need the theory. He had already worked out the answer for himself in the forest outside the western wall, in the month before the finals, in the dark with the stars over him. The chakra removal technique could be scaled. The energy could be scaled. With enough of it, with the scope of the 10 tails behind it, he could reach into every person on the continent, every bloodline, every sealed beast, every stored weapon, every jutsu-running body on Earth, and pull all of it out. The way he had pulled Neji's network into the air above him, return every human being to baseline. No chakra, no biju, no jutsu, no child soldiers, no clan hierarchies built on inherited power. Just people, humanity, standing on the ground it actually owned. And when the world was emptied of that power, he would hold what remained. He would be the only person with chakra on Earth, not as a god, not as a tyrant in any traditional sense, as the permanent lock on a door that should have stayed shut the day Hagoromo's mother ate the fruit. The villages would bow, the Kage would bow. Every clan patriarch and every military apparatus would bow, not to what he had done to them, but to the math of what remained. He had not told anyone the plan. He would not tell anyone the plan until he was ready to execute it. He had time. The Akatsuki were moving. Orochimaru had his own schedule. The cloud would do whatever the cloud would do. The stone would wait. The sand was already half broken. He would start with the mist. He walked. The road ahead of him narrowed between 2 stands of pine. The stars were coming out. A hawk called somewhere over the eastern ridge. The energy in his chest was steady. His knuckles had long since healed. The jacket he was wearing was the same one he had walked out of the orphanage in, repaired in 6 places and dyed twice in the intervening years. He had nothing in his pockets except the bingo book he had lifted from Kakashi's desk on the way out, and a small roll of hard currency he had taken from the mission office safe as back pay he had never been properly given. He kept walking. Behind him, 9 miles back, the main gate of Konoha stayed closed. Inside the Hokage Tower, a lamp was still lit in the third's office. Sarutobi had not moved from his desk. Kakashi had lowered himself into a chair. Asuma had finished the cigarette and had not lit another. Kurenai had closed the door from the outside 20 minutes ago and gone home to sit alone in her apartment and think about what she had seen in the arena that afternoon and what she had heard in the office that evening, and whether either of those things fit inside the idea of the village she had spent her life serving. The lamp in the third's office stayed lit until dawn. At dawn, Sarutobi lifted his pen and wrote 2 orders. The first was for the Konoha Hunter Nin division. He signed it. He read it back. He tore it in half. He wrote it again. He signed it. He set it aside. The letter was not to anyone in the village. The letter began with the words, "Jiraiya, we have a problem I do not know how to name." He sealed that letter first. He sent it out by hawk He watched the hawk leave through the open window over his desk. Then he sent the hunter knee in order. 3 teams left Konoha that morning. One of them took the south road to the river. One of them took the east road to the pass. One of them took the west road toward the coast. None of them found him. He had left the road within the first mile. He was already gone. The mist was 2 weeks away at a civilian pace. He would be there in 6 days. Somewhere in the trees, as he walked, the energy in his chest moved with his steps, and for the first time since he was 6 years old, Naruto Uzumaki was not walking away from anything. He was walking toward. The road narrowed. The pines closed in. The sun came up behind him and into the hills. By the second morning, he had cleared the border of fire country without seeing a patrol. By the third, he was on the ridgeline above the coast, moving through the pines at a pace that was not a sprint and was not a walk, because neither of those words described what the energy under his skin did with terrain. He ran on the balls of his feet along the spine of the ridge. He did not stop to eat. He ate when his hands had something in them and kept moving. He had taken a salted fish out of a dockside stall on the second night. He had left 3 coins on the counter behind him because he was not a thief unless he had reason to be, and tonight he had no reason. The 4th night put him at the water's edge. The land of water was a smear of islands across the horizon, low and green under a sky the color of wet slate. He did not look at the harbor. He did not consider the boats. He turned left and ran the coastline north until the continent's shoulder broke into the first of the inner sea crossings, and there he stopped at the tide line, and the black Air Force energy came up under his skin the way a thing surfaces in a pool, and he walked out onto the water. It held him. Water walking was the first technique he had taught himself in the silo, before he could read the scroll that described it, and with the energy behind it, the surface under his feet did not give him any trouble. He crossed the strait under stars. The current tried to pull him east. The energy did not negotiate with the current. He walked straight across. When he hit the sand on the far side, his boots were wet to the ankle, and he was in the land of water, and a border patrol was 20 yards down the beach setting up a small fire. 3 jonin. Mist headbands. One of them had a sword that the patrol had probably cleaned that morning because it still caught the moonlight in the way new oil catches moonlight. They saw him on the beach at the same moment he saw them, and the 3 of them stood up in the way trained men stand up when they have just noticed that their perimeter failed without anyone knowing it had failed. "Hold," said the one with the sword. Naruto kept walking up the beach. "I said hold." This Naruto did not hold. He was looking past them at the tree line, because the interior of the island began 20 paces behind the patrol's fire, and he had a direction. The one with the sword came for him first. He moved fast for a Miss Jonin, a straight drive off the front foot, sword coming in at the hip in the style Zabuza had opened his fight on the bridge with, the style the 7 swordsmen had standardized a generation ago, and the rest of the mist had adopted since. The blade was already committed when Naruto stepped inside the line, caught the wrist above the guard with his left hand, and used his right to tap the man at the base of the throat with 2 knuckles. The man's legs stopped working. The sword came out of his grip before he understood he had dropped it. Naruto caught the sword in the same motion, turned, and threw it, not at anyone, over the heads of the other 2 into the water behind them. The splash was 30 feet out. The second Jonin had started a hand seal, water style. Naruto closed the distance while the first seal was still forming, caught him at the elbow, and turned him, a single pivot of the forearm against its hinge that did not break the joint, but did make the joint stop being useful for the next hour, and dropped him on the sand beside the first man. The second Jonin did not make the sound the first one had made. He made a different sound. It was short. The third Jonin had already decided the fight was lost. He was backing toward the tree line with his hands out, and Naruto looked at him, and the energy did not rise any further than it already had, and Naruto kept walking past the 2 men on the sand toward the third. "Sit down," Naruto said. The third Jonin sat. He sat against the base of a pine 15 feet off the beach with his headband in his hands because he had loosened it during the back step without realizing. He stared at Naruto. He did not speak. Yagura, Naruto said. Where is he right now? The Jonin opened his mouth. He closed it. He opened it again. Kirigakure, he said. The tower, the Kage compound. How many around him? Full Anbu detail. 8 at the compound at any hour. Jonin rotation through the outer ring, seals on every door. The Jonin flinched. Don't lie to me. Your feet are fine. I haven't done anything to your feet yet. The Jonin looked at his own feet. South, he said. The rebel camps move. There's one in the cove near Hachigama. A week ago there was. Things change. She moves a lot. Naruto nodded once. He turned around. He walked up into the trees and was gone before the Jonin had finished wrapping his headband around his hand. He spent the next 4 days not fighting anyone. He moved through the interior of the main island at a pace that was not fast but never rested, and he watched. He stood on a ridge above a mercenary camp for 6 hours and counted the men, the weapons, the rotation of the sentries, the direction the supply carts came in from. He watched a loyalist patrol pass through a village and take a girl off a porch because she had the wrong last name. He did not intervene. He filed the patrol route. He found the cove near Hachigama on the second night and lay on his stomach on the cliff above it for 4 hours, while the rebel camp below him cooked their evening meal and cleaned their weapons and argued, in the low voices of people who had been arguing the same arguments for years, about whether to move the camp again before winter. He watched Mei Terumi at the center of that argument. She had her hair pulled back. She was sitting on a crate with her elbows on her knees. She was listening to 2 of her lieutenants without interrupting them. When the argument ended, she stood up, said 4 sentences, and the argument was over. The camp started packing within the hour. They moved 6 miles inland. Naruto followed them on the ridge above the road and filed the route. On the 5th morning, he moved on the mercenaries. He did not use a speech. He did not use fear. He used the shadow clone jutsu, and he used it at a scale the technique had not been designed to carry. He made 50. He fanned them in 3 groups across 3 camps that sat within 12 miles of each other, and each group moved at the same hour before dawn when the sentries were thinnest. The first mercenary company had 114 men on the roster and a warehouse full of weapons. The clones took the warehouse first, not with a detonation, with disassembly. They walked through the building and broke every trigger mechanism, every firing pin, every crossbow string, every blade tang, and walked out. The commander's tent was last. The commander woke up with a clone sitting in the chair across from his cot. The clone looked at him and said, "You're done here. Your hands don't work for the next 6 weeks. Walk south at dawn." Then the clone took the commander's right hand at the wrist, applied pressure at the 2 points above the radius, and walked out of the tent. The commander could not move the hand for the next 6 weeks. He walked south at dawn. The second mercenary company was worse. They had been running slave caravans through the inner islands for 2 years. The clones that went through that camp did not leave it walking. Naruto had made that decision before he split the group, and the clones carried the decision without needing to talk about it. By dawn, the second company was not a company anymore. The surviving staff, cooks, grooms, the 3 women who had been kept there against the wall of a tent, walked out the front gate at dawn with bags of rice and the keys to every lock on the compound. None of them looked back. The clones dispersed into smoke before the sun was fully up. The third company saw it coming an hour before the clones arrived, because one of the survivors of the first had made it to them on a stolen horse, and the commander of the third company tried to run. He did not make it past the second ridge. The clone that ran him down was not in a hurry. It walked up to him on the slope where he had fallen off his horse and asked him one question. "How many children have you sold in the last year?" The commander said a number. The clone said, "That was the wrong answer." The commander did not get up from the second ridge. Naruto, a mile away on the ridge above the main camp, felt the clone dispel and kept walking. By noon, the 3 largest mercenary operations in the Land of Water had stopped existing as operational entities. By sundown, the rumor had reached the rebel camp at its new inland site. By midnight, Mei Terumi was on the move with 6 of her best and a map. She found him at dawn on a rock outcropping above a stream where he had stopped to wash blood out of a sleeve. He was sitting with his back to the trees. He had heard her coming from half a mile out and had not moved. "You're the one who's been dismantling the mercs," she said, coming up the outcropping with her hand held away from the knife on her hip to make a point of it. "You're either with us, or you're going to tell me who sent you before I melt your face." Naruto turned his head. He looked at her. He looked at her for about 3 seconds. "I'm not with you," he said. "I'm going to end your war in 2 weeks and then leave. You can help or stay out of the way." Maid Terumi stared at him. The 6 men behind her, spaced along the slope below the outcropping, had their hands on their weapons and did not draw. She stared for a long enough moment that one of the men behind her shifted his feet. Then she laughed. A short, real laugh, not for an audience, the laugh of a person who had just heard something she had not expected to hear in a long time. "You're 15, she said. "I know." "You're going to end the war in 2 weeks. "Yes. With what?" "With me." She looked at him. She looked at his hands. The energy was not up. His hands were on his knees. She looked at his face and then at the stream and then back at his face. "All right," she said. "All right. I've been running this war for 9 years. I'm tired. If you want to end it in 2 weeks and you're not lying to me, I will sit on my hands for 2 weeks and watch. I'll need your maps. You can have them. I'll need you not to move on the loyalists until I've been to the tower. Fine. I'll need your second in command to stop threatening your own lieutenants in the dark. He's been running a side operation through the Western Cove. It's why your supply chain has been bleeding for 6 months. You didn't know." May's face went still. The smile did not leave it exactly. It froze, lost a degree of its warmth, and stayed there while her eyes adjusted around it. "Which one?" she said. "The one to your left, in the blue coat. Don't do it now. Let me handle the tower first. If you move on him before I come back, you'll lose 3 of your 4 Western safe houses." She did not turn her head. She did not look at the man in the blue coat. The man in the blue coat, 15 feet down the slope, had his hand on the hilt of his kunai in a way that was not resting. "I understand," May said. "Good. Can I ask you something?" "No," she laughed again. It was the same laugh. "Fair enough." Naruto stood up. He had not put the sleeve back on. He shook the water off it and pulled it over his arm. He nodded once at Maid Terumi and walked past her down the outcropping, past the man in the blue coat who did not move, and into the trees. He was at the Kaji Tower by the next evening. The compound had 8 Anbu on rotation. They were not, by Konoha standards, especially good. They were by Mist standards the finest killers the village had produced in a decade, and they had been in their positions so long that their positions had become habit, and habit was the first thing Naruto had learned to read on the street. He came over the east wall between the 4th and 5th centuries overlap. He moved along the roof line with the energy under his skin, dampening the sound of his weight. He dropped down into the inner courtyard and walked across it. An Anbu at the corner saw him. The Anbu opened his mouth. Naruto was past him before the sound came out. The Anbu fell without a mark. Chakra removal, 2-finger grip at the base of the neck, enough of a pull to cut the chakra to the legs. He would stand up again in an hour. He would not stand up in the next minute. 3 more Anbu on the inner hallway. 3 more on the floor. He took them the way a person takes stairs, one after the next, no change of pace, no theater. The energy did not come all the way up. He did not need it to. He was at the door of the Mizukage's chamber when the last 2 Anbu, the pair that always stood at the door, who were the best of the rotation, saw him coming up the hall. They drew together. They moved together. Naruto caught one by the mask and slammed it sideways into the wall, and the wall cracked around the impact in a web of stone, and the Anbu's body hit the floor and did not move. The other Anbu had his blade a 1/4 inch out of its sheath before Naruto's palm closed on his throat and lifted. The Anbu's feet left the ground. Naruto set him against the wall at arm's length, fingers loose on the throat, not choking, not yet. "You're not the problem," Naruto said. "Go sit down over there." The Anbu stared at him through the mask. After a full second of not breathing, the Anbu nodded. Naruto released him. The Anbu slid to the floor. He sat down where he was. He did not move. Naruto opened the door to the Mizukage's chamber. Yagura was at the far end of the room, standing by a window. He was smaller than Naruto had expected, a boy of perhaps 14 in the body. Though the face had been set in the lines of command for so many years, it looked older than it was. He had the staff weapon of his office in his hand. He turned when the door opened. The pupil of his visible eye had the Sharingan imprint ringed inside it like a brand under ice. "Who?" Yagura began. "You've been wearing someone else's thoughts for years," Naruto said. "That's embarrassing for both of you." Yagura did not move. Then Yagura moved. The staff came up, the water in the basin at his elbow rose in a coil, and the chamber filled with the pressure of a Kage-level technique beginning to unfold. The three tails inside him began to surface. Red chakra rolled along the edges of his frame. Naruto crossed the room. The energy rose up along his arms in dense black lines, thicker than they had been for the Anbu, because this was not an Anbu. He caught the staff on the downswing in his left hand, felt the weapon try to drink chakra from his palm, felt the attempt bounce off the energy the way it bounced off everything, and put his right hand on the crown of Yagura's head. The chakra removal technique went in at a depth Naruto had not taken it before. He was not pulling Yagura's network. He was not pulling the three tails. He was reaching for something thinner than either. The foreign signal at the root of Yagura's eye, the Sharingan imprint that had been laid into the optic nerve years ago and had been running ever since. Yagura seized. The three tails surged up inside him. Red chakra burst out along the skin. The pressure tripled. The room began to peel. The paper screens tore. The basin fractured. The air hummed. Naruto held the hand on Yagura's head. The energy went deeper. It found the foreign signal. It closed around it the way a hand closes on a splinter in skin, and it pulled. The imprint came up. It did not come up cleanly. It tore on the way out. Yagura's eye wept a red that was not blood. He made a sound that was not a word. His knees gave out. Naruto held him up by the hand on his head. The imprint came free. A small dense knot of foreign chakra coiled at the end of the extraction, and Naruto crushed it in his palm before it could do anything. Black Air Force energy unmated in under a second. The knot was gone. Yagura collapsed against him. The three tails inside Yagura roared, not to attack, to ask. The pressure of the roar rolled against Naruto's palm on Yagura's head and tried to reach past it into Naruto himself. Naruto held one hand on Yagura's skull and his attention on the beast, and he sent back through the energy a single shape of meaning. Wait. The three tails waited. Naruto lowered Yagura to the floor. The boy was breathing hard. His eye was clearing. For the first time in years, the Sharingan imprint was not over the pupil. Yagura's eyes were his own. Yagura looked up at the ceiling of the chamber. Yagura looked at his own hands. Yagura looked at Naruto. "How long?" Yagura said. His voice came out thin. "Years." "What have I?" "You know what you've done. The memories are there. Don't ask me to catalog them for you." Yagura put his hand over his eye. He pressed the heel of his hand into the socket. He did not cry. He was not the kind of person who cried, and he had not been the kind of person who cried for a long time before the imprint had been laid down. And the imprint had not taught him to cry either. He sat on the floor of his own chamber in the wreckage of his own technique, and he pressed his palm against his face. "Fix it," Naruto said. Yagura looked up at him. "Fix it," Naruto said again. "You have the office. Use it. End the purge. Name a successor before your guilt talks you into doing something stupid with your own throat. The bloodline families are out there waiting for the order. Give it." "Who are you?" "Naruto Uzumaki." "You broke." "I know what I broke." Yagura looked at the door. He looked at the wreckage in the chamber. He looked down at his hands again. After a very long moment, he nodded. Not at Naruto. At the floor. But he nodded. Naruto walked to the door. The three tails inside Yagura rolled against its seal one more time, reaching for him. Naruto did not turn around. He said without turning, "I'll come back for you. Stay in there." The three tails went still. Naruto stepped over the Anbu at the hallway wall and walked out of the Kaji compound the way he had walked into it. He was back at Meiterumi's camp by dawn. He did not tell her what he had done. He told her what she needed to do. He told her where to meet Yagura in 3 days, when the Mizukage would send out the order to end the bloodline purge, and he told her what the terms of the peace would look like and what her role in enforcing them would be. He was talking to her not as a person. He was talking to her as an institution that was about to exist. She listened. She listened in the way people listen when they have stopped pretending to themselves that they are negotiating. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You're installing me," she said. "Yes, as Kage, acting Kage. Whatever the transition requires, Yagura will step down or he won't. Either way, you hold the seat until it sits on someone the right way. And if I'm bad at it, you have 2 years," Naruto said. "Make it real or I'll come back and do it my way." He stood up from the campfire. He did not wait for her response. He walked away into the tree line. He was a mile out before May's second in command, a woman named Ao, leaned over the fire toward her. "Should we send someone after him?" Ao said. May did not answer for a moment. She was looking at the trees where Naruto had gone. The smile had come back to her face, but it was different from any smile she had worn in 9 years of civil war. "No," she said. Ao nodded once and did not ask again. Naruto was across the strait by the second night, back on the continent, moving east under stars he had already named for himself. He did not have a map. He had the memory of every map he had ever seen pressed into the back of his skull, the way some people press flowers in books. He ran the ridges. He slept under overhangs. He ate what he could carry. He did not slow down. By the end of the week, he was in the land of sound. He was there because of a name. He had taken 4 ledgers from Yagura's chamber on the way out. Old missed bloodline purge paperwork, the kind of paperwork that Yagura had signed without reading during the years the imprint had been running him. And one of the ledgers had cross-referenced a list of experimental subjects that the Mist had sold off to an outside buyer 8 years ago. The buyer's name had been redacted. The method of pickup had not. The method of pickup matched an Otogakure signature. One of the names on the list had been a 6-year-old girl. The ledger was 8 years old. She was either 14 now, or she was dead. Naruto was going to find out which. He found the first facility at the base of a ridge outside a village that had not been on a map in a decade. It was buried. He felt the seal on the ground before he saw it. A thin, cold pressure that the energy registered the way skin registers the edge of a draft. He walked the perimeter of the facility for 2 hours and mapped every entrance. There were 3. He went in through the one with the fewest guards. The first hallway was dark because the lamps had gone out weeks ago and no one had bothered to relight them. The smell in the hallway told him what he was about to find before his eyes adjusted. He had smelled worse on the street, but he had not smelled worse in a building. The rooms off the hallway were what he had been warned by his own research to expect, and worse than the warning. The tanks, the tubes, the bodies that had been in the tubes long enough that some of the bodies had grown into the shapes the tubes had imposed on them. 2 of the tanks held things that had been born in the tank, had never been out of the tank, and would not have known what to do outside of the tank even if a door had opened. Naruto stood in front of those 2 tanks for a long moment. Then he reached out with the energy. He put his hand on the glass. The chakra removal technique went through the glass the way it went through anything. It was not a glass technique. It was a chakra technique, and it found the half-living things inside the tanks, and it did the only thing that was available to do for them. It pulled, not partially, fully. It pulled the small, fragile shock networks out of the small, fragile bodies, and the small, fragile bodies stopped being alive. He dropped the networks. They came apart in the air. The bodies in the tanks went still. He broke the tanks after. He did not want anyone else to find them in that state. He went through the facility room by room, the rooms that held people who were still people he opened, and he said, in the flat, even voice he used when he was running paperwork, "Come out. Walk north until you find a village. Don't stop." The people who could walk walked. The people who could not walk, he carried. He carried 4 of them up to the surface one at a time. The 4th was a boy of maybe 11 who could not open his eyes against the daylight. Naruto set him down on the grass outside the entrance and put his own jacket over the boy's face. The 14-year-old girl was not in the first facility. He burned the facility behind him. He did not use a jutsu. He used lamps and the chemical stores that Orochimaru's staff had kept in the third chamber. And by the time the building was on fire, the people who could walk were already 2 miles up the north road, and the people who could not walk were in the grass outside with the sun on them. And Naruto was already moving to the second facility. The second facility was worse. It was where the curse mark research lived. He went through it the same way. He did not slow down. He did not stop to read the labels on the jars. The labels on the jars were the kind of labels that existed so that a scientist could call himself a professional while doing what a scientist was doing. Naruto did not need the labels to tell him what was in the jars. He was walking out of the second facility with the last of its ambulatory subjects on the road behind him when Kabuto Yakushi stepped out from behind the entrance with his hands held visible and his glasses catching the late light. "I've been watching you for a day and a half," Kabuto said. "I believe we should talk." Naruto stopped walking. The energy did not come up. It had been up for 6 hours. Kabuto looked at Naruto's hands, looked at Naruto's face, and his expression went through a very small adjustment that a less experienced person would have missed. "I don't know what you've been told about Orochimaru-sama's work," Kabuto said. "Some of it is open to a broader context than you may have been given. There are arrangements that could be beneficial for someone in your particular." "You heal," Naruto said. Kabuto's speech stopped. His mouth had been open on a syllable. It closed. "That makes you useful if you're pointing at something I care about," Naruto said. "Are you?" "I work for." "I didn't ask who you work for. I asked if you're useful." Kabuto did not answer for a second. His composure did the thing people's composure does when they have built the composure around being the one doing the evaluation and someone has shifted who was evaluating whom. It cracked. Kabuto put it back together quickly. He was good at that, but Naruto had seen the crack. "That depends," Kabuto said, "on what you care about. Walk with me, ask me questions, stop asking them when I tell you to stop." Naruto turned and walked up the road. Kabuto, after a moment, fell in behind him. They walked for an hour without speaking. Then Naruto said without turning around, "The girl, Otsuki Saya, 6 years old when the mist sold her. Where?" Kabuto hesitated. "Then the third facility. She is what Orochimaru-sama refers to as a successful subject." "Define successful," Kabuto told him. Naruto did not break stride. He did not turn around. He said, after Kabuto finished, "Walk faster." The third facility was a larger operation. It was staffed. It was guarded. Orochimaru had built it with the expectation that it would be a facility a person might want to take from him. And he had built the locks and the seals and the rotation accordingly. And he had done all of it well. And Naruto went through it in under an hour. He did not do it with patience. He did not do it with drama. He did it the way a storm goes through a wheat field. The energy was out along his arms the whole time, and the walls of the facility were not in good shape by the time he was done. And some of the staff survived the passage and some did not. The ones who did survive were the ones who had fallen down early. He found the girl in a sealed chamber 3 levels down. She was not the 6-year-old from the ledger. She was the thing the 6-year-old had been turned into after 8 years of what Orochimaru called successful subjects. She was 14. She had wings. The wings were not feathered. The wings were not chakra constructs. They were bone and skin, and they had been grown from the back of her ribcage over a period of years, and she had not been allowed to retract them since they had been grown. She was curled in the corner of the sealed chamber with the wings folded over her body like a tent she had made for herself. Naruto broke the seal on the chamber. He did not walk in. He crouched at the doorway. "Otsuki Saya." The girl did not move. "I'm here to get you out. You can come with me. You can stay. I'm going to tell you what comes next either way." The girl did not move. "If you come with me, I'll try to take these off." He nodded at the wings. "I might not be able to. I don't know yet. If I can't, I'll find someone who can. If I can't find someone, you get to decide whether you want to live with them the way they are. Nobody decides that for you again." The girl, after a long minute, raised her head. She did not speak. She did not have a voice left for speaking. Orochimaru had taken the voice out of her after the 2nd year, because successful subjects did not need to complain. She looked at Naruto with eyes that were the color of wet stone. And after another long minute, she reached out a hand from under the wings, and Naruto took the hand in his. He carried her out of the facility. Kabuto, at the top of the stairs, watched them come up. Kabuto's face had gone through something while Naruto had been downstairs. He did not mention it. Naruto did not ask about it. Naruto set the girl on a bedroll in the grass outside the facility and sat down beside her for an hour and did not speak, because she needed the hour more than she needed words. And when the hour was up, he picked her up again and carried her to the nearest settlement that was not a front, which was a fishing village 9 miles north. And he left her with a woman who ran the village's single apothecary and who Naruto had watched for 20 minutes from a roof before choosing her. He left a bag of coin with the woman. He left a note for Saya that said 5 words and was signed with his name. He did not tell her he would come back. He did not know if he would be able to. He did not lie about what he did not know. He went back to Kabuto. Kabuto was waiting where Naruto had left him. Orochimaru will come, Kabuto said. I know. He is preparing a technique specifically for your properties. I know. If you continue to destroy the facilities, he will come. I just said I know. Naruto began walking. Kabuto, after a moment, followed. They were 3 days out from the 3rd facility when Orochimaru arrived. Orochimaru did not announce himself. He had built himself over the course of 50 years around the idea that announcing oneself was the mistake amateurs made. And so when he came out of a tree, off a ridge, with the 8-headed technique already beginning to emerge from his mouth in the first half second of the encounter. Naruto turned his head 90 degrees toward the ridge before Orochimaru had fully cleared the tree line. He had felt the approach in the last 200 feet because the energy was awake in his chest and had been awake since the facility. He looked at Orochimaru. He did not move. He let the snake begin. The 8-headed technique was not an attack. It was a body swap sequence, a mouth-based substitution ritual that pushed Orochimaru's consciousness down the throat of the target and replaced the target's mind with his own. It required contact. It required intimacy. It required an opening. Naruto did not provide the opening. The snake reached him. Its first mouth opened. Its first mouth met the Black Air Force energy at the threshold of Naruto's chest, which was where the energy lived. And what the energy did to the snake was simply refusal. The technique did not encounter a wall. It encountered a door that did not open. The mouth closed on nothing. The snake jerked back. The second head came. The second head met the same door. The third head, the fourth, the fifth. The technique had 8 heads because any one of them was supposed to be enough to break a target, and there were 8 of them because the designer of the technique had never considered that all 8 might try at once and fail. By the 7th head, Orochimaru's face, visible at the base of the construct, had changed. By the 8th head, Orochimaru was on one knee. The 8-headed technique was a two-way street. What Orochimaru sent down, it came back through it. The refusal that the energy had delivered to each mouth had traveled back up the construct's spine to its origin, and its origin was Orochimaru, and Orochimaru's own chakra system was receiving all 8 refusals at once. He seized. The snake construct collapsed back into him. He went down on all fours in the grass with his hands spread on the dirt, and he was breathing the way a man who has never been injured breathes the first time he is. Naruto walked across the clearing. He did not hurry. He crouched beside Orochimaru. Orochimaru's head came up. The pupil of his eye was slit the way it always was. The gold of the iris had gone a different shade of gold, the way gold goes when it has been heated and is cooling. Your arms were taken by a 13-year-old, Naruto said. Then someone gave them back. That's how much your peers respect your capability. Orochimaru tried to say something. Naruto took both of Orochimaru's wrists. He did not use chakra. He used the energy in his own hands, and the fact that he had spent 7 years on the street learning what joints did when you pulled on them, and he pulled. The arms came off at the shoulder with a sound that was a wet combination of tearing and unbinding, because the arms had been reattached by medical jutsu, and the reattachment seams were not as strong as the original bone. The sound carried in the clearing. Orochimaru screamed. Naruto held both arms up. He looked at them. He set them on the ground beside Orochimaru. "Third time," he said. "Next time, there won't be a next time. You're going to tell me where you found out about the Ten Tails research. Then you're going to survive this and think very carefully about your options." He sat down on the ground across from the screaming man. "I have all day," he said. He did, in fact, have all day. Orochimaru screamed for about 11 minutes. The screaming went through 3 different pitches before it settled into a long, ragged wheeze. Kabuto stood at the tree line and did not come forward. Kabuto had seen Orochimaru in a great many states over the years, and none of them had been this one, and he was not approaching until he was told to. When Orochimaru could speak, he spoke. He told Naruto about the tablets, the Uchiha Stone tablets, the originals, the copies, the translations. He told Naruto about the 2 men who had brought the research to his attention a decade ago, Uchiha Madara, impossibly alive, and the man in the mask who had not yet named himself. He told Naruto about the sealing chamber, about the land of origin, about the frequencies of the Ten Tails binding. He told Naruto about his own attempts to replicate the sage's work and how they had all failed. He told Naruto the location, approximate, of the chamber where the Ten Tails was kept sealed. Naruto listened. When Orochimaru was done, Naruto said, "Kabuto, take him inside. Reattach the arms if you want. He will not come after me again." Kabuto stepped forward. "You," Naruto said to Kabuto, "are coming with me. You are going to be useful in the Akatsuki phase." Kabuto stared at him. You want me. You heal. I have a circuit to run that will produce injured people I am invested in keeping alive. You will do that. You will be paid in survival. When the thing I am doing is finished, you can make whatever choices you want to make with the rest of your life. Orochimaru-sama will not be in a position to threaten you for a long time. Look at him." Kabuto looked at Orochimaru. Orochimaru looked up at Kabuto from the ground, armless, and said nothing. There was something in Orochimaru's face that Kabuto had spent 10 years not being allowed to see and had not, until this moment, believed was there. It was the face of a man whose hand had been removed from the wheel. Kabuto nodded once. Naruto stood up. "Reattach the arms. Meet me at the North Crossing in 3 days." He walked out of the clearing. Kabuto knelt beside Orochimaru. He reached for his medical kit. He glanced at the trees where Naruto had gone. He did not say anything. He set the arms back in place and he began the long procedure of rejoining them. And while he worked, Orochimaru did not speak. Orochimaru did not move. Orochimaru's breathing slowed over the hour of the procedure to something regular. When Kabuto was done, Orochimaru flexed his fingers. They worked. Barely. He did not look grateful. He did not look defiant. He looked like a man who had just been told by a physical fact that there was a class of opponent he had not known existed, and that he had now met one. Kabuto met Naruto at the North Crossing 3 days later. Orochimaru was not with him. Kabuto brought 3 scrolls, a medical kit, and a fresh pair of sandals for Naruto. Naruto looked at the sandals. "What are these?" "The ones you have are a week from failing." Naruto looked at his own feet. The sandals he had were a week from failing. He took the new ones. He put them on. "Useful," he said. He turned north. The hot springs town in Fire Country sat 3 weeks' travel east of where Naruto had left Kabuto to follow. Naruto moved on ahead. He had taken the Akatsuki movement patterns from Orochimaru's head, cross-referenced them with the maps he had read in Konoha's archives a year ago, and watched the rhythm long enough to know that Kasame Hoshigaki and Itachi Uchiha were going to pass through that town within 4 days. He got there in 3. He sat down in the bar on the evening of the 4th. Kasame came through the door at 7. Kasame had Samehada wrapped on his back. He was alone. He ordered sake. He sat at the bar. The bartender did not speak to him. Kasame was a regular in the sense that a tall blue man carrying a sword as tall as he was became a regular somewhere whether the town liked it or not. He drank his first cup. He drank his second. Naruto sat down on the stool next to him. Kasame did not turn his head. He was looking at his sake. After a moment, without turning, he said, "I know that chakra signature. Nobody told me it had a face." "It has a face." Kasame turned his head. "You're the kid from the bingo book, the one Konoha can't find." He glanced at Samehada on his back. "The 7 swords called you a ghost story." Tell me where Akatsuki meets. No. Wrong answer. Kasame went for Samehada. He was fast. Samehada was at his hand before Naruto had cleared the stool. The sword came off his back in the one motion that had killed a lot of men, and Samehada's mouth was already opening to take chakra out of the air, because that was what Samehada did. Samehada did not take chakra out of the air. The air was full of the Black Air Force energy, which was not exactly chakra in the sense Samehada processed, and Samehada met the energy and did not recognize it as food. Samehada hesitated. Samehada never hesitated. The hesitation cost Kasame the first second he needed. Naruto caught Kasame's sword hand at the wrist. He pressed 2 fingers to the spot above the radius where the grip reflex terminates. Samehada dropped. It hit the bar mat with a thud that was heavier than a sword should have been. Kasame's other hand came for Naruto's throat. Naruto took that hand too. He folded Kasame's arm behind Kasame's back in a joint lock that nobody of Kasame's size should have been vulnerable to. And the energy ran through Naruto's frame, and the physics of the whole did not follow the physics of the 2 men's weights. And Kasame's cheek was on the bar mat before Kasame's brain had finished processing that he had been put there. Naruto bent 3 of Kasame's fingers backward at the second knuckle. Kasame did not scream. Kasame made a sound in the back of his throat that a shark would have made if a shark had been offended. The door of the bar opened. Itachi Uchiha walked in. He was wearing the Akatsuki cloak. His hair was in the tie. His eyes, the Sharingan, the 3 commas spinning, the Manjikyo held under it like a second layer, were on Naruto from the moment the door was a foot open. Naruto and Itachi looked at each other. Something moved between them. It was not recognition in the sentimental sense. It was recognition of a category. 2 people who had done what the math required and were still standing in rooms where nobody else knew what to do with them. Itachi looked at Kasame on the bar. He looked at Samehada on the floor. He looked at Naruto. "Let him up," Itachi said. Naruto released Kasame. Kasame stood. He shook out the hand. The hand did not shake out. Kasame looked at it. He said nothing. He picked up Samehada from the floor and sat down at a table. Naruto and Itachi sat across from each other. The bartender, who had been pretending to polish a glass for 3 minutes, went into the back room and closed the door. "I know what you did to your clan," Naruto said. "I know why. I know who told you to." Itachi's face did not change. "I know you're dying." There was a pause. "You know a great deal," Itachi said. "I read a lot." Itachi looked at him for a long moment. "Go on." "Your brother left Konoha. He's chasing you. He's going to catch you eventually, in the state you're in. When he does, you're going to give him the fight he needs to unlock the next level of his eyes. And then you're going to die, and he's going to think he did it. And then the man who told you to kill your clan is going to use that grief to finish whatever he started. Your whole plan has one author, and that author isn't you, and you haven't yet decided whether you mind." Itachi was quiet. His fingers on the table were folded under each other. He did not look at Kasame. He did not look at the door. He looked at Naruto. "And what do you want?" "Akatsuki to stop moving for a year. After that year, I'm going to come collect every ring wearer still standing. You decide now whether you want to be standing or not." "That's not a negotiation." "No." Itachi almost smiled. It was not a smile. It was the ghost of one that had passed through the muscles of his face without getting picked up. "And Sasuke," Itachi said. "I don't care what happens to Sasuke. He made his choices and so did you. The difference between you is that yours were bigger." Itachi considered that. He did not defend himself. He did not defend his brother. He looked at his hands on the table. After a long moment, he said, "1 year." "Good." Naruto stood up. He looked at Kasame. Kasame was holding his hand and looking at him with an expression that had not been on Kasame's face in many years. "You're better than a job," Naruto said to him. Kasame did not respond. Naruto walked out of the bar. The door closed behind him. Kasame, still holding the hand, looked across the table at Itachi. "I don't like that kid," Kasame said. Itachi picked up the sake cup the bartender had left half full on Kasame's first seat. He tilted it. He set it back down. "Nobody does," he said. "That's not the point." The first Jinchuriki was Yugito Nii. She was in the Land of Lightning on a patrol rotation the Cloud had stopped updating publicly 3 years ago. Naruto found her anyway. He found her at a way station on the edge of the mountain country, and she saw him before he came into the light, because the two tails inside her did not like the energy in his chest, and the two tails had told her before he had crossed the tree line that something was coming. She did not ask who he was. She came out of the way station with her claws already lit and went through the door at him. She hit the door frame first because he had stepped to the side. She pivoted. She threw a claw strike that would have opened a man from collarbone to hip. He caught her wrist. The energy ran up his arm. She felt it go through her wrist into the meridian at the base of her palm and up her arm into her shoulder. And before she had taken her second breath in the fight, Naruto had her in a chakra removal grip that was not deep enough to pull the network, but was deep enough to hold it. She could not move. 8 seconds. He held her for 8 seconds, long enough for her to feel the network answering a hand that was not hers, long enough to understand what the hand could do if it closed harder. He released. She stepped back. Her hands came up. She was breathing in the way someone breathes when they are trying to keep the beast inside them from surfacing and are not sure whether they should try. "Talk," Naruto said. "You. I'm not here to fight. I would have already if I were. Listen." She did not relax. She listened. He told her the plan. He told her in 4 sentences. He did not soften it. He did not present options. He said, "This is what I am doing. This is who I need. This is what it will cost you to come with me. This is what it will cost you to stay." She stared at him for a long moment. The two tails inside her, for the first time in its partnership with her, did not say anything. It was as still as she was. "You're going to pull chakra out of everyone on the planet," she said. "Yes. Including you. Including everyone. And me. Yes." She closed her eyes. She opened them. She was furious. She was furious about being presented the option. She was furious that nobody had ever presented her options before. She was furious that the option she was being presented was the one she would have chosen at 6 years old if anyone had ever asked her at 6 years old. She said yes with her teeth clenched. She said yes with her hand in her hair. She said yes while glaring at him like she wanted to fight him about having said it. Naruto nodded once. "Come with me," he said. "We have 5 more stops." Han of the 5 tails was in a mountain pass in the land of Earth. He was enormous. He wore armor that had been made around him because no armor maker had ever been able to produce armor that fit. He did not speak for the first 5 minutes of the conversation. He stared at Naruto. Then he said, in a voice that came out of his chest like an avalanche through a stovepipe, "You are the one. Yes, I have been waiting. Since when? Since I was born." Han came with him. Roshi of the 4 tails was deeper in the stone's territory. He was old. He was tired. He looked at Naruto and he looked at the 3 already walking behind him and he said, "Finally. Is it today?" "No, not today. Soon." "How soon?" "I'll come with you." He did. Utakata of the 6 tails was a rogue. Missed, no clan ties left, hiding in a small fishing village on the coast of the mainland. When Naruto walked into his rented room, Utakata threw a bubble at him. The bubble contained 6 tails corrosive chakra. The bubble hit the energy along Naruto's jacket and dispersed. Utakata stared at the residue on Naruto's collar. "You're going to need more than that," Naruto said. "Who are you?" "Someone with a plan. You don't have to like the plan. You just have to decide if you're in it or not." "What is the plan?" Naruto told him in 3 sentences. Utakata said nothing for a long moment. Then, "You're going to pull chakra out of everyone on the planet." "Yes, that's insane." "I know. I'm in." Fu of the 7 tails was a teenager. She was alone. She had been alone for so long that her own village had forgotten how many of her they had owed to, and she had been sleeping in trees for the 2 years since her last handler had died. She saw Naruto on the ground beneath her tree and did not speak. She watched him for 40 minutes. He did not move. She came down from the tree at the end of the 40 minutes. She sat across from him in the grass. "I've been following your work," she said. He looked at her. "Across the network," she said, and tapped her temple. "The 7 has been telling me. It's been telling every one of us. Yugito, Han, Roshi. The 3 tails has been talking to the Mizukage again. The 6, we know about you. Are you coming? I've been ready for 8 months." She stood up. She walked beside him. Then there was Killer Bee. B was in the land of lightning, in the training caves on the backside of the Raikage's compound, where he had been training alone for 3 weeks with the Eight Tails in full sync. The Eight Tails was the first beast that had a name before B had a name for it. And it was the first beast that had called a host a friend, and the two of them had a partnership that the rest of the 9 did not have. Naruto knew this before he walked into the caves. It was what made B the hardest stop and the last one before the Akatsuki ring. B saw Naruto come in. He had a pen in his hand and a small notepad, and he was writing a verse. He looked at Naruto. He looked at the notepad. He stood up. He put the pad in his pocket. He tilted his head. "Yo," B said. "Fox boy, I've been hearing about you. You came to collect or came to chat." "Don't." B's eyebrows went up. "Don't what?" "The rap?" "Little bro, the rap is who I am. I'm aware." "Don't." B grinned. He did not stop. "You come into my cave and tell me don't, like I'm not the 8-legged. He drew the first of his 7 swords. Naruto did not say anything. The energy came up along his arms in dense cables, black and thicker than it had come up for any of the others in the circuit. And he did not move. He waited for B to come to him. B came. He came in a stance that had no name because it was the stance B had invented and had refused to teach anyone. A 7-sword weave that had killed 3 S-rank shinobi in its history and had never once failed its user. The first sword came in under Naruto's arm. The second came in above his shoulder. The third came in at the hip. The 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th were distributed across his body at angles that should have meant that dodging any one of them put him in the path of the next. He did not dodge any of them. The energy met the first sword at Naruto's ribs, and the sword skidded along the surface of his jacket as if his ribs were a rock face. The second, third, fourth swords did the same. B's grin went to full size. He stepped back and committed to the weave again, and this time the 7 swords came at a pace that 3 swords could not have managed. Naruto caught one of them. He caught the 4th one. He caught it by the flat of the blade between his palms, reversed it, pulled it out of B's grip. He dropped it behind him. B was still running 6 other swords. B pivoted and came at him from the other side. The 8 tails surged. B went partial transformation, the horns, the teeth, the tails, the red-black chakra mantle across his frame. The 7 swords, 6 swords now, became 8 because B grew 2 more arms to carry them, and the tails grew blades at the tips, and now B had a weave of swords that no human body could have carried. Naruto looked at him. The energy along his arms went black to the elbow and then past the elbow and then all the way to the shoulder. He was the darkest the energy had ever made him. He smiled, not a friendly smile, not a mean one, a different kind of smile. The one a person smiles when they realize the wall in front of them is not a wall, it is an opponent. He smiled like that for 1/10 of a second. Then he moved. The ridge did not survive. It took 40 seconds. In 40 seconds, 8 trees went over. 1 hill got a new shape. 3 of B's swords went 3 different places. Naruto got hit twice, once on the jaw and once on the hip. The first 2 successful strikes anyone had landed on him in 8 months. And B got hit 4 times, each time by a black Rasengan that Naruto did not announce but formed mid-motion, spiraling dense spheres of energy-infused rotation that detonated against B's tails and sent him backward through the remaining trees. The 8 tails itself, inside B, was roaring, not in anger, in delight, and the sound of the roar carried off the walls of the cave system and came back at them and ran into the open air. B went fully transformed. For 6 seconds, Killer B was the 8 tails in the flesh. Tails, tentacles, the long-jawed bullock's face, the hide of darkness and lightning over a skeletal frame the size of a small mountain. It filled the valley. Its shadow covered the cave mouth. Naruto looked up at it. He put his hands out from his sides. The energy came off his arms in long trailing lines, thick, visible, like black water running off the edges of something built for storms. He did not grow. He did not transform. He was 15, 5'6", standing in the valley across from an 8-tailed demigod. His feet were on the ground. His smile had gone away. His eyes were half-lidded. 8 tails, black Air Force formation, he said. He closed his hands into fists. The energy shot out along the ground in lines, 20 lines, radiating from where he stood. running along the valley floor in all directions. At the end of each line, a shadow clone rose out of the ground, black Air Force energy running up its frame to the shoulders. The 20 clones circled the 8 tails. They did not attack. They stood. Each one held a single open palm pointed at the 8 tails. Each palm glowed with the thin ink black of the chakra removal threshold. The 8 tails looked around. Its massive head turned. It looked at the 20 palms. And then the beast laughed. Inside the construct, B was laughing. The sound came out of the beast's throat as a rumble. He was laughing because he had never in his life been the second most interesting thing in a clearing, and the kid had put him in that position in under 3 minutes. The 8 tails withdrew. The transformation receded. B came out of it standing in the crater of himself. He was breathing hard. He was bleeding from a cut above his eyebrow that had not been there before. He looked at Naruto. He looked at the 20 clones. The clones dispelled. Naruto stood alone in the valley. "Yo," B said. He was out of breath. "I gotta admit, little bro, you hit different than a normal." "Stop," Naruto said. B stopped. "You're the only one who's made me work in 2 years. I'm not gonna pretend that didn't happen." Naruto looked at the destroyed ridge. "Your beast trusts you. That's the part I needed to see." He extended a hand. "Come with me. The 8 tails is the one I need closest when I run this operation. You'll know why when I explain it." B looked at the hand. He looked at the crater. He looked at Naruto. "You better be for real," B said. "I'm always for real." B took the hand. B immediately tried to rhyme on the handshake. Naruto let go and walked away. "Don't do that again." Right. Got it. No rhyme on the grip, no rhyme on B. Right." They walked out of the valley together. The response team from the cloud arrived at the coast 3 days later. 12 Jonin, Naruto had been expecting them since the hour he had walked Yugito Ni out of the cloud's territorial zone. He met them in a hallway in a way station in the mountain country, because hallways had walls, and walls made 12 Jonin into 8 Jonin, and then 4 Jonin, and then 1 Jonin standing on his own feet. And that 1 Jonin spent the next hour propped against the wall with his headband on the floor beside him, breathing and not trying to fight. Naruto wrote a note on the wall above him in a piece of charred wood from the hearth. It said, "Tell your Kage I said come personally if he has something to say." He walked out, came personally. The Raikage did not send word. He did not bring a team. He walked onto the plain outside the river town where Naruto had stopped at a tea stand to buy a bowl of rice, and he walked with the lightning of his armor already crackling along his shoulders. And he had come alone because coming with anyone else would have been an insult to what he believed he was walking toward. Naruto set down his rice. He stood up from the tea stand. He walked out onto the plain to meet him. Did not speak at first. He came across the distance at a speed no human body should have carried, the lightning armor cracking the air in front of him. And his first strike was at Naruto's chest at a velocity that would have punched through a cliff wall. Naruto took the strike on his crossed forearms. He went back 20 feet. His feet stayed on the ground. His heels carved 2 long furrows into the plain. He stopped. The energy was along his arms, dense. He came forward. His first strike was at A's shoulder. It landed. A went back 40 feet and took a section of a nearby cliff with him. Pieces of rock fell around the Raikage as he rose from the dust. He was smiling. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a man who had not been hit like that since Killer B had been allowed to go full. They went again and again. The river town at the base of the plain evacuated during the third exchange, because the shockwaves were running through the foundations of the bridge, and the foundations of the bridge were running through the floor of the community hall, and the community hall had an elder in it who knew what shockwaves meant. The town cleared in 20 minutes. They cleared it to the ridge a mile off, and from the ridge they watched 2 figures on the plain kick up clouds of earth that did not come down. The fight went for 9 minutes. Naruto took 4 clean hits. 2 of them were to the ribs, and they went through the energy's reinforcement hard enough to bruise the ribs underneath. The third was to the jaw, and it took 3 teeth out of alignment, which he set back with his tongue without slowing down. The fourth was a glancing strike to the thigh that made his leg go numb from the knee down for half a minute. I took one clean hit. It was to the shoulder, and it was the shoulder of the arm A was leading with, and the lightning armor cracked around the point of impact, and the shoulder would hurt him for 6 weeks. And the armor itself would take 3 days to fully restabilize. They stood in the crater of their third full exchange. They were both breathing. The river town on the ridge was silent. The sun was over the plain. I said, "You took my Jinchuriki. She chose to come. She's not your property. She is Cloud Shinobi. She has obligations. She has a seal in her body that was put there before she could consent to it, and she's been a weapon her entire life. That's not an obligation, that's a sentence." I stared at him. The lightning around his arms crackled, held, and dimmed. Not down to off, down a level. "You're fast," Naruto said. "That was real. But you're fighting for a system that treats people like Yugito as national assets. I don't respect the system. That doesn't mean I don't respect you. Those are different things." I considered. "What are you building?" he said. Naruto looked at him for a long moment. "A world where your brother doesn't have to be a Jinchuriki to matter." I did not speak for 10 seconds. The lightning around his arms cut off entirely. "If you harm B could take me on a good day," Naruto said. "He's fine." I stared at him. After a long moment, the Raikage turned around. He did not say anything else. He walked back across the plain the way he had come, and he did not look over his shoulder. He did not send another team. He did not send another Kage. The hidden cloud closed its border patrol standing orders on Naruto Uzumaki to a single-line directive: observe only. Do not engage. The stone did engage. Onoki sent a border intercept team of 20 when Naruto crossed into stone territory tracking Roshi. Naruto took them apart in 4 minutes. "Shadow clone, Black Air Force formation," he said in the middle of the first intercept, and 20 clones rose out of his own body at once, each one with the energy at full output along its arms. And what happened to 20 trained stone jonin when they encountered 20 copies of Naruto Uzumaki running full Black Air Force energy at the same time was something the Hidden Stones incident report would spend 8 pages on and fail to fully describe. When the dust cleared, there were 20 stone jonin in various states of inoperability, distributed across a half-acre clearing, and the clones had dispersed, and Naruto was already 6 miles away. Onoki got the report. He read it twice. He set it down. He did not say anything for a long minute. Then he stood up from his chair and walked to the window of his office and looked at the mountains. And after another long minute, he turned around and wrote a single directive on a piece of paper and handed it to his secretary. The directive read, "No stone shinobi will engage Naruto Uzumaki. Any stone shinobi who violates this order will be considered to have resigned their commission." Onoki, nobody argued. The year passed. Naruto ran the circuit. He gathered the Jinchuriki. He trained them, not in jutsu because most of them did not need new jutsu, but in the shape of what was coming. He showed them, one at a time, the chakra removal technique at extraction depth. He put his hand on Yugito's chest and lifted the Two Tails deck network a half-inch above her skin and held it there for 3 seconds. She looked up at it. She understood. He did the same for Han, for Roshi, for Utakata, for Fu, for B. Each of them, when he was done, knew what the technique felt like from the inside, and each of them, when the day came, would not need to be held down for it. Then the year was up. He came for the ring wearers in the order of their use to the endgame. Hidan found him first. That was how Hidan wanted it to go. Hidan had heard about the kid in the bingo book and had decided that the kid was going to be the next sacrifice on a long list of sacrifices that Hidan had been feeding his god for a decade. Hidan stepped out onto a road Naruto was walking down, waved his scythe, and began his opening ritual. Naruto stopped walking. He watched. Hidan gave the full speech. It took 2 minutes. Hidan ran the ritual. A circle drawn in his own blood on the earth of the road. The scythe marked with Naruto's blood from a cut on Naruto's cheek that Hidan's throw had scored in the opening moment. The ritual of Jashin that turned the user into a voodoo link to the target. Hidan drove the scythe into his own thigh. He waited for the blood to transfer. Naruto did not bleed from the thigh. Naruto did not bleed from anywhere. The energy in his chest had sealed the scratch on his cheek in the instant after it was made, and the ritual's link had been closed before the link had finished opening, and Hidan's self-injury was just a man sticking a scythe in his own leg in the middle of the road. Hidan's face went through three things. What? Your god's not listening. Naruto closed the distance. He brought his open right hand across the side of Hidan's neck. No blade, just the edge of his palm, and the black Air Force energy tuned to the frequency bone was most vulnerable to. And the strike took Hidan's head off his shoulders in one motion. The head came off at an angle. It hit the grass beside the road. The body stayed standing for 2 seconds before it folded. Naruto looked at the head. The head was still alive. Hidan's eyes were rolling. The mouth was opening and closing. I know you're still in there, Naruto said. That's your problem now. He walked over the body and kept going. Kakuzu was next. Kakuzu had 5 hearts. Kakuzu had been a problem for 2 of the 5 Kage before he had been in Akatsuki. Kakuzu met Naruto in a canyon in Fire Country with the threads of his body extended and all 5 of his hearts visible as masks along his spine and shoulders. He did not give a speech. He attacked. Naruto closed the distance. He caught Kakuzu's chest with both hands. The chakra removal technique activated on all 5 hearts simultaneously. 5 chakra networks surfaced from 5 bodies at once, ghosting above Kakuzu in a web of blue-white lines that connected through a central trunk running down Kakuzu's spine. Kakuzu looked up at what Naruto was holding. His face changed in a way it had not changed in a long time. Naruto severed 3 central lines at once. 3 hearts stopped. 3 networks collapsed back into inert flesh. 3 of the masks on Kakuzu's back went dull. Kakuzu fell to one knee. He was breathing fast. 2 hearts left. He was on his hands in the dirt. Naruto released the remaining 2 networks. They settled back into him. Tell the masks where I'm going, Naruto said. I want them scared before I get there. He walked away. Kakuzu, on his hands in the dirt with 2 hearts left, watched him go and did not speak. Kakuzu had lived for a very long time and had been a great many places and had taken many lives, and he had never been held the way he had just been held. He stayed on his hands in the dirt until Naruto was out of sight. Then he stood up. He walked in the other direction. He walked for 3 days without stopping. He did not fight again. Deidara met Naruto from the sky. He had been tracking Naruto for a week by then because the news of Hidan had reached him, and he did not believe it. Deidara had decided that the kid in the bingo book was going to be his next piece, because the kid had been called art by 3 separate Akatsuki members, and art deserved to be blown up by artists. His opening move was C3 from 3,000 feet. C3 was Deidara's mid-tier area detonation. A clay bird the size of a small house dropped on target from altitude that detonated on impact with a yield that had flattened villages. The clay bird hit the road Naruto was walking on. The detonation reached scale. It covered half a mile in every direction. The crater it left was the kind of crater that cartographers added to maps. Naruto walked out of it. The energy along his frame burned the residue of the blast off him like smoke off a torch. His jacket had new scorch marks. His face was clean. He looked up. Deidara, on his smaller clay bird at altitude, stared down. What the? He went for C4. C4 was not a blast. It was a cloud. The finest clay particles, so small they entered a person's body through the lungs and the skin, where they detonated on a cellular level. It was how Deidara had killed the 3rd Tsuchikage's personal guard. It had a radius of 300 yards, and it was inescapable. Naruto walked into the cloud. The black Air Force energy burned the particles out of his airspace before they could settle. They dispersed around him in a sphere, a visible halo of smoke that could not get closer than 6 inches to his skin. He walked out of the cloud without slowing. He looked up at Deidara. Come down. Deidara did not come down. He went for C0. C0 was the nuclear option. It was the whole body. It was the detonation of the user. It was Deidara's way of going out, the final statement of an artist who believed his art would never be surpassed. He had told no one about it. He had sworn to himself that if he ever had to use it, the witness would be worth the statement. The chakra for C0 began to build in his frame. It was the largest chakra buildup he had ever done. It took 7 seconds. Naruto was already in the air. He did not use a jutsu to get up there. He jumped. The energy in his legs and the 60 feet of altitude he crossed in the jump said everything anyone needed to know about what the energy did to the concept of what a human body could do. He landed on the clay bird beside Deidara. The bird tilted. He took both of Deidara's arms. Not off. Back. He wrenched them behind the clay bird's frame and held them there with both joints at the edge of separation while the C0 chakra, unable to flow into his palms, dispersed with nowhere to go. The chakra buildup collapsed. Deidara went pale. "Say you're done," Naruto said. "I'll blow us both. You won't." Naruto released one arm. He took the mouths on both of Deidara's hands in a grip that closed the palms shut. No mouths, no clay. He looked at the lake below them. 100 feet down, a mile across, deep. He dropped Deidara. Deidara hit the water from 100 feet. The splash was big. Naruto rode the bird down. He landed it on the bank of the lake. He sat down on the bank. Deidara came up, sputtering. He could not make clay with his palms closed. He swam to the bank. He crawled out. He sat on the grass 10 feet from Naruto. He stared at Naruto. "Your art was the most interesting thing about you," Naruto said. "Now you're just a guy in a lake." Deidara did not speak. He looked at his own hands. He flexed his palms. The mouths were still closed. They would be closed for the next 6 weeks because Naruto had tapped the seal at the base of each palm with a chakra touch on the way down. Deidara, without his mouths, was a man who could make pottery. He was not an Akatsuki member. "Walk east," Naruto said. "Find a village. Sell pots." Deidara did not answer. He stood up. He walked east. He walked for a long time. He did come to a village. He did eventually sell pots. He lived a long time after that. Sasori was in the puppet forest. The puppet forest was Sasori's masterwork. It was 100 puppets, all of them his finest, arranged in a formation across a 6-acre tree line in the land of rivers. It was where Sasori went when he needed to fight at scale. It was also, though Sasori had not yet admitted it to himself, where he went when he wanted to be seen. Naruto walked into the tree line. The puppets activated. 100 of them came through the trees at once, from every angle, joints clicking, blades extended, poison sprayers primed. Naruto stopped in the center of the formation. He looked around. "You're in the red one in the back," he said. The formation paused, not stopped, but the rhythm of it dropped a beat, because Sasori, inside Hiroko, had not expected to be located, and his control signals had registered the surprise. "The core puppet," Naruto said. "The one with the heart container. You've been in there so long, you've started forgetting that you're still controlling everything else from the inside." He activated the chakra removal technique at a frequency he had not used before. Wideband, not deep. He was not pulling Sasori's personal network. He was pulling the connection threads. Every chakra thread connecting Sasori to every puppet in the forest went taut, then visible. Blue-white, 100 threads, rising above the tree line like the strings of an enormous harp that had been laid over the canopy. Naruto reached up. He grabbed a fistful of threads. He pulled, not to sever, to redirect. Every puppet in the forest fell to its knees simultaneously. For 2 seconds, they were controlled by a hand that was not Sasori's. Then Naruto released the threads. The puppets fell still. The forest was a graveyard of frozen puppets. Sasori, inside Hiroko, ejected. He came out through the back of the puppet in his real body, a boy's body, maintained against time, pale as wax. He stood in the graveyard of his work. He looked around. He looked at Naruto. He had not been looked at in his real body by anyone who was not going to die since before his village had buried his parents. Naruto said, "You're still in there too, the person you were, somewhere." Sasori did not speak. "I'm not going to kill you. You're going to undo every puppet you gave to the Kaj offices and the daimyo houses over the last 15 years. You're going to give me the list of which officials you replaced and with what. Then you can do whatever you want." Sasori stared at him. "Why would I do that?" "Because the alternative is I pull your heart container out of your chest and hold it up and ask you nicely from there." Sasori was silent for a long moment. Then, at a volume of voice that belonged to a man who had just recalculated something important, "I need a scroll." Naruto gave him a scroll. Sasori wrote. He wrote for 2 hours. The list was comprehensive. The list included names Naruto had not expected. The list included a puppet in the Hidden Clouds council chamber, 2 in the stone, 1 in the daimyo's kitchen in Fire Country, and 1 that had been sitting in the Rain Village's main administration hall for 9 years. When Sasori was done, he handed the scroll to Naruto. He did not ask for anything in return. Naruto took the scroll. Go somewhere. Find someone who hasn't died yet. Sasori looked at him. Who hasn't died yet? Somewhere you were. Sasori was quiet. He stood in the graveyard of his puppets for a long time after Naruto walked out of the forest. He was still standing there at sundown. Nobody knew where Sasori went after that. He did go somewhere. Nobody said where. Naruto met Kabuto at the north crossing of the Sound Territory border. Orochimaru had been preparing. Kabuto had been reporting. Kabuto had held off on reporting anything of use for 2 months, and Orochimaru had not noticed because Orochimaru's attention had been consumed by the technique he was building for the kid who had taken his arms twice. The technique was ready. Orochimaru had assembled an army. The army was not a traditional army. It was a summoning, a full Edo Tensei command, the impure world reincarnation at a scale no one had run it at since the Second War. The first Hokage, the second Hokage. 3 former Kage pulled from burial in the Land of Sound's outer tombs, a summoning field set into the field outside Otogakure, where Orochimaru had drawn the circle in blood for 3 weeks. Naruto arrived at the summoning field at dawn. The reanimated shinobi stood in a loose formation at the far end of the field. Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage, was the largest of them, even more than the old photographs had suggested. Tobirama Senju, the second, was beside him. 3 former Jonin commanders flanked them, each one a Kaj-level name from a generation ago. Naruto walked onto the field. He looked at Hashirama Senju. "I know you're not really them," he said. He looked at the first Hokage's face. "And you'd be ashamed of what your village became, so this is disrespectful to you too. Sorry about that." Hashirama's reanimated face moved. A small movement, one Orochimaru would not have caught from the tower, but Naruto caught it. A flicker of expression in the eyes of a dead man. The expression was not hostile. It was acknowledgement. Naruto activated the chakra removal technique on all 5. He did not pull the bodies. He did not pull their own chakra networks. He pulled the anchoring threads, the summoning chakra Orochimaru had used to bind the souls to the bodies. 5 threads, running from 5 corpses to a central source in the tower half a mile away. The threads came up through the skin of each reanimated body. They surfaced as a bundle. Naruto caught the bundle in his hand. He pulled once. The 5 bodies went still. The reanimation dissolved because the anchor had been removed. Hashirama's body began to crumble first into the dust the technique had borrowed it from. Tobirama went next. The 3 commanders followed. In 30 seconds, the field had 5 small piles of dust and nothing else. Naruto stood where he was. He looked at the piles. Kabuto came up from underground. He did not come up to attack. He came up on his hands and knees in a tunnel 50 feet from Naruto. And he was, by the terms of his arrangement with Naruto, coming up to hand off the final signal. He waved once. Naruto nodded. Naruto stomped once, chakra-laced. The shockwave through the ground ran out from his foot in a ring, and the ring reached the tunnel system Orochimaru had built as his personal approach route to the summoning field. And the tunnel system collapsed in 4 places. Orochimaru came up out of the ground through the floor of the tower, 200 yards away, furious, because his approach had just been sealed by his own apprentice working with his own enemy. And his approach had been sealed on a morning he had been preparing for 3 months. He activated his last technique, Living Course Reincarnation, full. The final version of the body swap ritual, the one that did not require contact, the one that reached across space through the chakra of the target and inserted the user's consciousness. Orochimaru's snakes came out of his mouth in a tide. The summoning circle in the field ignited. The ritual began. Orochimaru's consciousness pushed toward Naruto's mind. It reached the threshold of Naruto's mental space. The Black Air Force energy was sitting at that threshold, like something that had been waiting for exactly this kind of intrusion. Orochimaru's technique ran for 6 seconds. In those 6 seconds, Orochimaru experienced what it was like to be inside the Black Air Force energy rather than facing it. What he experienced in those 6 seconds did not translate into language. It did not have the texture of a memory. It had the texture of a pressure, a weight, a refusal, a hunger. It was the mental space of a child who had been thrown through a window at 6 and had not looked back since. And it was the accumulated architecture of every consequence that child had made since, built into a structure that Orochimaru walked into and could not walk out of. He walked into a room with no ceiling and no floor, and the walls were decisions Orochimaru had not made. He walked into a room where he was not the thing being observed. He was the thing being dismantled by the observation. 6 seconds. Orochimaru was expelled from the mental space. He returned to his own body shaking. Some part of Orochimaru was left in there. Not a memory, not a skill, something smaller and older. He did not come back with it. He did not know what it had been until he tried to use it later and found it missing. And by then, it was too late, because Orochimaru's signature laugh did not work right anymore. And the laugh had been his first and his last tell for 50 years. Naruto opened his eyes. He looked at Orochimaru. He took a step. Orochimaru tried to defend. The 8-branching technique, the 8-headed hydra of a technique, the ultimate version of the snake he had run at Naruto in the Sound Hills, emerged from his body. All 8 heads, massive, rearing, venomous, old. Naruto grabbed the nearest head at the base of its neck. He used the chakra removal grip on the technique itself, not on Orochimaru, on the summoned mass. Pulling the chakra out of the construct, the way a person drains water from a basin. The hydra dissolved, head by head, in the order Orochimaru had built them. The 8 heads came apart into chakra threads, and the threads ran up Naruto's arm and dispersed into the energy. And Naruto was standing in front of Orochimaru with a handful of dissipating threads. He dropped them. He looked at Orochimaru. You've been chasing immortality your entire life. You spent 50 years in fear of dying and turned everyone around you into a tool for the fear. That's not ambition. That's cowardice with a lab coat. He reached out. He took Orochimaru's wrists, the transplanted arms, the arms he had removed twice now. He squeezed once at both tendon junctions at the same time. Both of Orochimaru's hands went limp below the elbows. Not removed, severed at the nerve. The strike was at the exact point where medical rejoinery had run its weakest repair. And the energy went into that seam and undid it at the nerve root. Orochimaru's hands hung from his elbows like coats on hooks. He could not move them. He would never move them again. 3rd time's permanent, Naruto said. He released the wrists. Orochimaru fell to his knees. Stay out of the plan. I'll know if you try something. Kabuto, get him inside. Kabuto, still face down in the tunnel mouth, raised one hand to signal he had heard. Naruto looked at Kabuto. You're coming with me. You're going to be useful in the Akatsuki phase. Kabuto raised the other hand. Naruto walked off the field. Orochimaru watched him go. Orochimaru had been the terror of a generation of shinobi. Orochimaru had held the eyes of 3 Kage in his lifetime. Orochimaru had stood in rooms that had emptied when he walked into them. Orochimaru, kneeling in the field outside his own tower with his hands not working and his last technique in pieces, watched the 15-year-old boy walk away and did not understand, in his body, what had just happened to him. Kabuto came up out of the tunnel and walked to Orochimaru. He knelt beside him. He did not speak. Orochimaru looked at Kabuto. How? Orochimaru said. I don't know, Orochimaru-sama. You do. I have theories. Tell me. Later, Kabuto said. You need to be moved. He picked Orochimaru up. He carried him back to the tower. He did not look at the piles of dust in the field. He closed the tower door behind him. The tower stayed closed for the next 4 months. Orochimaru did not emerge. Kabuto left after 2 weeks to join Naruto in the Rain campaign. Naruto was already moving. The Rain village sat under a constant downpour that had been constant for 17 years. The rain had been constant because the man who ruled the village had been routing the country's weather through a single technique for all of those 17 years, and the technique had been a form of self-imposed penance. And Naruto did not intend to honor the penance. Konan met him at the perimeter. She was in the air when he saw her. She was made of paper, her body, the technique she fought with, the folded form of an angel's wings that had become as much a part of her as the bones. She threw paper bombs at him from 100 feet up. The bombs came in waves. The first wave was 1,000. The second was 2,000. By the third wave, the air around Naruto was paper, and the paper was igniting on contact, and the ignitions reached a pitch where the sound of the explosions was a single continuous note. Naruto walked through it. The Black Air Force energy was up in a way it had not been since the ridge with B. It ran along his frame in cords as thick as his own limbs, and the paper hit it and burned off in confetti, and the paper that had been about to ignite at his skin ignited in the air 6 inches from him. And the detonations ran off the energy's surface without reaching his body. He walked out of the firestorm 12 feet from where Konan had landed. She stared at him. "I need to talk to Nagato," he said. "Not Pain, Nagato." "How do you know that name?" "I know everything about the man you've been protecting. I also know the man who turned you all into this. Take me to Nagato, or I'll find him myself, and I'll be less polite about it." Conan's hand moved. The signal she had been given years ago, the signal that called the 6 paths of pain. They came. All 6. Diva with the gravitational powers, Asura, the cybernetic one, Human, the mind reader, Animal, the summoner, Hungry Ghost, the absorber, Naraka, the interrogator. They descended on the rooftops, in the street, in the alley, in the top of the pipeline, and they stood around Naruto in a formation that had never been broken by anyone, anywhere, in the 10 years Nagato had been running it. Naruto looked at the Rinnegan in each set of eyes. 6 purple-ringed stares in 6 bodies, all of them corpses. "These are corpses," he said. Every one of them was a person. He closed his eyes for 1 second. He opened them. Black Air Force, broadcast mode. He had never said it out loud before. He had been building it. He had tested it once in a clearing on a flock of small birds. He had not tested it on people. He tested it now. The energy, which had always lived in him and had always come up along his arms, came up outward instead. A field effect, extending 15 feet in every direction from his body, running the chakra removal frequency through the air the way a speaker runs a tone through a room. Every chakra receiver in the 6 bodies of pain, the piercings at the bridge of each nose, the rods threaded through each spine, the relay points at the joints, lifted up through the skin simultaneously. Not the chakra of the bodies themselves, the signal chakra. Nagato's remote control lines, Naruto could see them. Black and white threads, running from each piercing in each body, out through the air, over the rooftops, toward a tower at the far end of the village, toward the machine at the top of the tower. 6 connections. Naruto reached out. He took the 6 threads in his hands, 3 in the left, 3 in the right. He pulled once. The 6 paths of pain went still. 6 corpses standing in the rain. Konan watched this from a rooftop above. She did not move. Naruto looked up at her. He dropped the threads. They hung in the air. "Take me to him." Konan took him to the tower. The tower stood at the center of the village. It had been built a long time ago as an observation post. It had been converted over years into a life support system. Nagato was at the top. He was in the machine. The machine was not a machine in the traditional sense. It was a framework of chakra receivers, rods embedded in his body at the nodes of his chakra network, and the framework held him upright because his body could no longer hold itself. He had been in the framework for 9 years. He had moved once in that time to adjust the angle of his back. He had not moved since. Naruto walked into the chamber at the top of the tower. He did not look at the machine. He looked at Nagato's face. The face was thin. The hair was red. The eyes were the Rinnegan, the pattern of the sage, the eyes that had been in Nagato's skull since he was a child and had not been his own eyes, strictly speaking, for a long time. "I know the story," Naruto said. "Yahiko, the village, the war, Jiraiya, all of it. You had something real and the wrong person found it first and turned it into this." He glanced at the machine. The idea wasn't wrong. The method was everything wrong with it. He looked at the Rinnegan. "I need those eyes, not literally. I need to know what you know about the 10 tails." Nagato's voice came out of him weak and old. "And if I refuse, then you sit in this machine until the man behind you finishes using you and throws you away, and all of it meant nothing. Or you tell me what I need and I make sure at least the reason it happened is still visible when I'm done. Your choice." Nagato was quiet. The rain hit the windows of the tower in long waves. Konan stood in the doorway behind Naruto. She did not speak. After a long silence, Nagato began to talk. He told Naruto the location of the ten-tail sealing chamber, which was not where the standard records had placed it, but in a chamber beneath a mountain in the original land of the sage, older than the first shinobi war, older than the villages. He told Naruto the chakra frequency of the sealing binding. He told Naruto the protocol the man in the mask had built for his own endgame. He told Naruto the man's name, Obito Uchiha. Naruto filed the name. "He's at the sealing chamber now," Nagato said. "He has been waiting for you. He has been watching you for a year. He sent me a letter about it 3 weeks ago. He was trying to tell me how to stop you. His instructions were bad. I didn't send his reply." Good. Naruto turned to leave. Nagato said, "What will you do with the world after?" Naruto looked back. He looked at the face in the machine. "Make it something a child can survive in." He walked out of the chamber. Konan was at the bottom of the tower when he came down. She was standing in the rain. The rain had begun to thin, not stopped, but thinned. Nagato's technique at the top of the tower had been interrupted by the conversation. The weather was beginning to return to the shape it should have had. "Take me with you," she said. Naruto looked at her. "You know what the plan is." "I heard you tell him." And she was quiet for a moment. The rain was slowing further. The first break of sky in 17 years was opening above the tower. Konan tilted her head back briefly to look at it. "It's the only thing that makes sense," she said. "Keep up." They walked out of the rain together. Behind them, the first real sun in nearly 2 decades came through the break in the clouds, and the village, which had been living under water for so long that half of it did not remember what light looked like at noon, began very slowly to lift its heads. The sealing chamber was under a mountain in the original land of the sage. It was older than anything on any map. The mountain had a shape that did not match the geology around it. The chamber had been dug before there were hands to dig with, by a man who had given himself hands to do it. Naruto walked up the mountain on the 3rd morning after the rain. The Jinchuriki were with him: Yugito, Han, Roshi, Utakata, Fu, Bei. Konan flew above. Kabuto was at the base of the mountain, running medical backup. The group did not speak. They had spoken enough in the weeks leading up. They had agreed on the protocol. They had agreed on the sequence. Each of them knew what the day was. At the mouth of the chamber, Naruto stopped and turned to them. "Wait here." B opened his mouth. Naruto looked at him. B closed his mouth. "If I need you," Naruto said, "I'll need all of you at once. If I don't come back out, go home. Don't come in after me." Yugito said, "We agreed on a signal." "Yes." "What's the signal?" "You'll know it when you see it." He walked into the chamber. The chamber descended. It went down for a mile through a spiral that turned against the direction spirals should have turned. The walls were stone. The stone had been inscribed with a script so old that Naruto, who had read everything he had ever been able to find, recognized only 3 of the symbols, and the 3 he recognized were not any of the ones he would have expected. He came out of the spiral into a round chamber the size of a small lake. The 10 tails was not visible. The chamber was lit by something that was not a torch. The floor of the chamber was carved into a ceiling array that covered every square foot. The ceiling, impossibly high, was painted. The painting was old. The painting showed a tree. Obito Uchiha was standing in the center of the array. He was wearing the mask. The mask had the single eye hole for the Sharingan. The eye was already open. The Mangekyo pattern was spinning at a slow, steady rate. He turned his head when Naruto stepped off the last stair. "You've been dismantling everything I built." "You built a machine. Machines get dismantled." "I built a world of infinite peace, the infinite Tsukuyomi." "Is a genjutsu you're going to cast on the entire species. I've seen what you do with minds that aren't your own. Ask Yagura." Obito did not respond. Naruto rolled his shoulders. "Move." Obito did not move. The fight began. Obito's intangibility activated on the first strike. Naruto's right cross went through him. The Black Air Force energy ran along Naruto's arm and did not grip the Uchiha body because the Uchiha body was not in the same phase of matter as the energy was reaching for. Naruto went past Obito, pivoted, brought the reverse elbow back in a half second. Same result. The energy went through. Naruto stepped back. He watched Obito's cycle. The Kamui intangibility had a rhythm. The eye could only hold the phase for a finite window before it had to reset. The window was long, 2 seconds, maybe 3. The reset was short, a tenth of a second. In that tenth of a second, Obito was solid. Naruto did the math. Shadow clone, contact web. 20 clones came up out of his body at once. They did not fan out. They stayed in contact, each clone touching the next at the shoulder, the back, the arm, the hip, forming a dense spherical formation around Obito. The energy ran through the formation in threads connecting every clone to every other clone, so that any strike from any angle carried the energy through the web. Obito phased in. The energy was already in the space he phased into. The contact web covered every cubic foot of the formation. Obito phased into a hand. The hand belonged to a clone. The hand was on his throat. Obito phased out. He re-entered somewhere else in the formation. The energy was there too. A clone's forearm caught his ribs, out in. A knee out. On the fourth phase, Obito phased into a Naruto who had the flat of his palm already placed at exactly the point Obito's heart would pass through. The energy went into him in the tenth of a second gap between phases. Obito became solid against his will. Naruto, the real one, the one behind the contact web, stepped forward through the web. The clones parted for him. He took Obito by the throat and pulled him into full physical space by force. Obito was solid. His Kamui did not activate. The energy was inside the space between the phases now. Naruto hit Obito with a flat palm chakra removal strike to the chest at full output. Obito's network surfaced, all of them. The Sharingan network in his left socket, the Rinnegan transplant in his right, the wood release he had grafted from Hashirama's cells, the Gedo chakra that had kept him alive since the Kanabi Bridge. 4 networks, all foreign, all rising above Obito's body at once in a lattice of ghost lines that hovered 6 inches above his skin in layers. Each layer a different color. Red for the Sharingan, purple for the Rinnegan, green for the wood, gray for the Gedo. Naruto held all 4 in his hands. You watched your friend die and decided the world owed you an answer. Obito was staring up at his own stolen power held above him. He could not move. His lungs were working. His eyes were open. I've got some experience with that feeling. The difference is I decided the world owed me nothing. You decided it owed you everything and started collecting. He pressed on the Rinnegan network. A fraction, Obito seized. His body arched. His throat made a sound. Tell me how to access the 10 tails, the sealing mechanism, the release sequence. Obito's mouth was closed. Another fraction, 14 seconds. Then he told. Naruto released the networks. They settled back into Obito. Obito was breathing in short, shallow breaths, and the mask had cracked across the eye slit during the seizure, and a long line of his real face was visible down the right side. The scar, the warp graft from the boulder, the face of a boy who had been in the rock and had come out of it wrong. Naruto looked at it. He did not feel pity. He did not feel satisfaction. He felt the conclusion of a file closing. He did not leave Obito conscious enough to follow. He hit him once at the base of the skull with the energy pulled in tight to the palm. A single strike that put Obito out and would keep him out for 24 hours. He did not kill him. He stepped over him. And then Madara Uchiha rose out of the ceiling floor. He did not emerge from a summoning. He did not rise from a grave. He rose through the stone, which opened for him, which bent to him. And he came out of the floor of the chamber in his own body, impossibly alive, maintained by a chakra he had been drawing on the 10 tails for decades. He was tall. He wore the armor he had worn at the Valley of the End. His hair was the full Uchiha mane. His eyes, both Rinnegan, dark purple rings on black, were open and they did not blink. I watched your fight, he said. You are interesting. I've been called worse. You're going to try to use the 10 tails for your plan. That's the plan. The 10 tails does not belong to a child. Naruto looked at him. It doesn't belong to a corpse either. Madara almost smiled. It was not a smile. It was a shape his mouth made that was not a frown. They fought. The fight that followed was the longest fight in this story. The opening moves were exchanges of taijutsu at a scale that neither fighter had brought against a human opponent in years. Madara was faster than he had any right to be for his age. He hit at a weight that the chamber floor could not absorb. Every strike he landed on Naruto sent Naruto back 10 feet. And every strike Naruto landed on Madara cracked Madara's guard and bought Naruto 2 seconds of openness. They fought in the chamber for 4 minutes. Then the chamber stopped being a chamber, because the walls began to crack and then to fall, and the ceiling followed, and the stone above them came down in pieces. And the fight moved up through the collapsing mountain and out into the open air. They reached the surface, still fighting. Madara brought the Limbo clones into the fight. Limbo was the second hardest thing Naruto had faced after B, because it put Madara's reserves in a dimension the Black Air Force energy could not fully reach. A Limbo clone existed in a parallel space that only the Rinnegan could see. A Limbo clone could strike from nowhere and be nowhere when you struck back. Naruto took 2 Limbo strikes in the first minute of the open air fight, one to the kidney, one to the side of the head, and the strikes went through the energy's reinforcement because the energy had not been tuned for the interdimensional frequency. He adapted. He began running chakra removal in broadcast mode as a field around his own body, tuned not to remove chakra, but to detect it, so that any Limbo clone moving through the field registered as a pressure on the energy's surface. After the 3rd Limbo strike, he was blocking them before they arrived. He could not hit them, not yet, but he could feel where they were, and he could move the real Madara into their line of approach so that they had to pull their own strikes. Madara dropped Limbo. He brought up Susanoo. The complete, perfect, towering armored god of the Uchiha lineage came up around him. It was the height of the mountain they had just come out of. It was blue-black. It had 4 arms. It had swords in all of them. It filled the sky above the crater they had made of the mountain. Naruto looked up at it. Shadow clone, Black Air Force formation. 40 clones rose around him at once, all of them at full energy output, arms out, palms open. The sky above the crater went black with the cords of energy running from clone to clone. Chakra removal, construct extraction. The clones activated the chakra removal on the Susanoo's framework itself, not the man inside it, the chakra architecture of the construct. 40 hands reached at the structure of the armor. It was the first time anyone had tried to chakra remove a sustained construct rather than a person, and it did not work cleanly. The Susanoo did not come apart. 3 sections of its frame surfaced as ghost networks and collapsed. The chest plate, the left shoulder, part of the sword arm, and the construct staggered. One of the 4 swords fell out of Susanoo's hand and landed blade down in the crater, a mile of blue-black steel going into the earth with the sound of a cathedral bell struck by a hammer. Madara, inside the staggered Susanoo, looked down through the open chest plate at Naruto. He dropped the Susanoo. He came down to fight Naruto directly. The ground fight went for the next 19 minutes. It went everywhere. It went through the crater. It went up the slope of the former mountain. It went across the plain at the base. It went through a stream and into the water and back out onto the rock. Madara's Rinnegan brought the full range of its techniques. Shinra Tensei pushing Naruto backward through 3 rock faces. Bansho Tenin pulling him forward into an armored fist that cracked 2 of his ribs. The Hungry Ghost absorption trying to drain him and meeting the energy and failing and dispersing. Naruto ran the energy at levels he had not sustained before. He began to feel the strain of it at the 15-minute mark. In the shoulders, in the knees, Madara activated Chibaku Tensei. Chibaku Tensei was the Bansho Tenin at scale. It was the technique that pulled matter, stone, earth, water, chakra, anything, into a central point until the matter became a small moon. Madara cast it above the crater. He cast it at the size he had cast it at the Valley of the End. The crater below them began to come apart. Dust, rock, chunks of the former mountain. 100 tons of debris rose into the air and began to compress into a sphere 50 feet above them. Naruto, below, watched the sphere form. He was breathing hard. He was bleeding from a cut above his eye. His hands were on his knees. He stood up. Black Rasengan. He brought both hands together. The energy came into his palms. The rotation began. It was a Rasengan in the old sense, the technique his father had invented, the spinning sphere of pure chakra. But the rotation he put into it was not pure chakra. It was the Black Air Force energy compressed into a spiral, and the spiral fed on itself the way fire feeds on the heat it makes, and the sphere grew. It grew to the size of his head, then his chest, then his torso. Then he was holding a sphere in his hands the size of a small wagon, black as oil and crackling at the edges, and the air around it was being pulled into it and compressed into the spin. He jumped. He went up. He cleared the distance to the forming Chibaku Tensei in one leap. He arrived at the moon just as the moon had completed its final compaction. He brought the black Rasengan into it. The detonation was not a detonation. It was a pull. The black Rasengan at that size ran the chakra removal frequency through itself the way a pump runs water, and the moon mass came apart at the chakra layer that had been holding it together. The rocks fell, not in an explosion, not in a blast. They fell because the thing holding them up had been unmade. They fell in a column straight down onto the plain below, and Madara was in the column. Madara came up out of the column of rock. He was the first person in Part 2 to stand back up after a black Rasengan at full size. He looked at Naruto. "You are the strongest person I have fought since Hashirama," he said. There was no flattery in it. It was the math. "I know." Naruto crossed the distance in one step. He took Madara's wrist. He activated the full chakra removal technique, not the partial operations he had run on everyone else. Full extraction. He pulled Madara's entire chakra network. The Rinnegan, the wood release, the Senjutsu reserves, the Gedo chakra keeping him alive. Every hidden reserve, every transplant, every seal, every bloodline fragment the man had accumulated over more than a century of theft. It came up. It came up above Madara's body like a second sun. It was a web of everything Madara had ever been or stolen or absorbed. It glowed golden, not because gold was the color of chakra, but because all the colors of Madara's chakra combined produced something closer to gold than to any single hue. It was enormous. It was larger than the body below it. It was the infrastructure of the most power ever held by a single person on the continent, and Naruto was holding it with one hand by the central node. Madara looked up at his own power held above him. He did not speak. "You were the point of the whole machine," Naruto said. "The clans, the villages, the hidden countries, the Kage system, the war cycles, all of it rotates around people like you who decided that power gives you the right to write the story for everyone else." He looked at the network above Madara. "It's a beautiful network, I'll give you that." He pressed on the central node, Madara's life node. Madara seized, his body on the ground arched. "You're done," Naruto said, not as a mercy, as a conclusion. He severed the central line. Madara Uchiha's chakra network collapsed. The golden web came apart at its seams. The Rinnegan, both rings, went dark. The wood release flickered out. The Senjutsu reserves emptied. The Gedo chakra threads that had been keeping his body impossibly alive for decades all cut out at once. Madara did not fall in pieces. He fell like a building that had had its foundation pulled, straight down, all at once, into the rubble of the column of rock from the Chibaku Tensei. He did not move again. Naruto stood in the silence. He did not feel anything. He did not celebrate. He had not come to celebrate. He had come to do a thing, and the thing was most of the way done. He turned toward where the sealing chamber had been. The mountain above it was gone. The chamber was open to the sky. He walked down into it. The 10 tails was there. It filled the chamber in a way that space had not been told it could be filled. All of the tails, all of the eyes, the central eye like a sun, the surrounding eyes like a constellation arranged on the body of something that should not have had eyes at all. It was the original chakra. It was the fruit of the tree, condensed into a shape. It was the first thing the first sage had ever held in his hands, and the last thing Hagoromo's sons had argued about before the argument had become the shinobi world. Naruto stood in front of it. He looked up at the central eye. "I'm not trying to contain you. I'm trying to use you once and then put you down properly. You were never supposed to be a weapon. Neither was I." He held out both hands. "So let's agree on something." The 10 tails looked at him with all of its eyes. A long silence. Then it bowed its heads. All of them. The central eye closed. The surrounding eyes closed one by one. The body of the beast lowered itself against the stone of the chamber floor. The 10 tails had not recognized any human being since the sage himself, and in the last instant before it recognized Naruto, it had not been certain it would, and when it did, it bowed. Naruto stepped forward. He ran the sealing sequence Obito had given him. He ran it in reverse. The Black Air Force energy interfaced with the Ten Tails the way it had interfaced with every other chakra network he had ever reached into. The same grip, the same language, the same math at a different scale. The connection opened. The Ten Tails' scope flooded into him. It was every chakra that had ever been concentrated into a vessel at once. It was the original weight. It was the thing that had been too heavy for a generation of sages to redistribute. It came into Naruto the way a tide comes into a bay, and the energy in his chest caught it the way a levee catches a river. Not blocking, redirecting. He stood in the chamber with the power of the first and last beast, and he did not transform. He did not roar. He did not lose himself in it. He had always been going to be the container. The energy was the reason the container would hold. He closed his eyes. He reached out. The chakra removal technique, broadcast at planetary scale, opened outward from his chest in every direction. It ran through the stone of the earth. It ran through the water of the ocean. It ran through the sky above. It reached through the continent and then beyond it. It reached into every person, every bloodline, every sealed beast, every chakra-running body on the continent, and every chakra-running body beyond the continent, and every shinobi village, and every civilian settlement, and every man in a daimyo's army who ran on chakra, and every woman with a bloodline limit inherited from her grandmother, and every child in an academy learning hand signs they had been told would make them a weapon. It did not hurt them. It lifted. Across the continent, every shinobi collapsed to one knee, not in pain, in the shock of a weight being lifted. They had carried the weight so long that they had taken it for their own center of gravity, and the removal of it left them unsure of how to stand. In the Leaf Village, Jonin in their homes looked at their hands. Their hands glowed for 3 seconds, and the glow was the glow of their chakra coming up out of their skin, and then the glow was gone. Kakashi Hatake, in his apartment, watched his hands go dark and did not move from his chair for a long time. Iruka Umino, at his desk at the academy, looked up from the homework he had been grading and watched the light come off every student's paper at once. Each of the chakra signatures that the paper had carried lifting into the air and dispersing, and he did not understand, in the first minute, what he was seeing. Sarutobi Hiruzen, in the Hokage's office, set down his pipe for the last time. In the cloud, the Raikage stood in his office and raised one fist. The lightning armor did not come. He raised the other fist, nothing. He stood in the office in his own skin for the first time in 40 years. He looked out the window. His brother was a mile away in the training caves, and the Eight Tails was leaving B's body in a long trail of blue light rising up toward the sky without violence. A watched it rise. He did not move. In the mist, Mei Terumi, who had taken the cog seat 8 months before, tried to activate lava release in a private practice yard. Nothing came. She looked at her hands. She stood in the yard for a long moment. Then, after the moment, she took a breath. It was not a weapon breath. It was the first breath of her adult life that did not need to be. She laughed. It was not the laugh she had laughed at Naruto. It was a smaller one. She kept it for herself. In the stone, Onoki tried to make himself lighter. It did not work. He stood in the garden of his compound and felt the ground under his feet exactly as heavy as it was. And after a minute of standing, he laughed too. And his laugh was the laugh of an old man who had been told he could put down something he had been carrying for 70 years. In the sand, Gaara opened his eyes in the middle of a council meeting. The sand in the gourd at his back settled to the floor. The sand was just sand. He looked at his hands. He flexed them. For the first time in his life, the shukaku was not waiting in the back of his skull. He stood up. He walked out of the meeting. He did not come back for 3 hours. Everywhere, the tailed beasts surfaced from their hosts. They did not emerge in explosions. They were drawn out in long blue light threads, rising through the skin of each Jinchuriki in a pattern that the medical texts of the continent would, years later, have no language for. Yugito, on the slope of the mountain where Naruto had left her, watched the 2 tails lift out of her chest and rise into the air. Han watched the 5 tails rise, Roshi the 4, Utakata the 6, Fu the 7, Bei the 8. Each beast rose up to a height above the continent where it could be seen from the ground, 9 enormous shapes of light above the clouds. They were visible to every person on the continent who was awake and looking up at that hour. They were free for the first time in their existence. Naruto, below, in the chamber, released them. Not into seals, into dispersal. The beasts came apart at their own seams, not into death, but into chakra returning to the air from which it had come. The 10 tails, which had been standing in front of Naruto, bowed one last time and came apart the same way. Its body broke into light. The light rose up through the open top of the chamber and spread outward across the sky, and the sky did not change, because the chakra went into the sky the way warmth goes into a room. It became part of the air, and it distributed, and after a few minutes, there was no concentration of it left anywhere in the world. The beasts were gone, the jutsu were gone, the bloodlines were gone, the chakra was gone. All of it, everywhere, except in one chest in a chamber under the land of origin. Naruto opened his eyes. He was standing in the chamber. The walls were broken. The ceiling was open to the sky. The greatest concentration of chakra the world had ever assembled was now sitting inside him, not running, not burning, just present, the permanent lock, his alone. The only chakra left on earth that was not baseline human, not because he had taken it, because the world had agreed in the language of mathematics and consequence that this was where it belonged. He walked out of the chamber. He stepped over Obito on the way up. Obito was breathing. His Sharingan eye was open, and it was empty. The Mangekyou pattern was gone. The wheel had stopped. He was a man in a cracked mask. Naruto did not look at him again. He came up through the rubble of the mountain. He stepped over the pieces of the Chibaku Tensei column. He walked past Madara's body. He came out onto the open plain. The sun was rising. Konan was waiting at the edge of the crater. She had not moved since he had gone down. She looked at him when he came up. "It's done," she said. "It's done." She nodded once. She looked out at the continent, said as in the sun was coming up behind them, and it was lighting the plains and the hills and the distant shapes of the villages to the east. The sky, where the 9 beasts had hung for a minute, was empty now. The air was cool. There was a wind. "What do you do now?" Konan said. Naruto looked out too. He looked at the villages in the distance. He looked at the sky where the beasts had been. He looked at his own hands, the only hands on earth that still carried the weight. "Watch," he said. He put his hands in his pockets. He started walking. Below him, 9 miles away, in the valley that held the first settlement on his route down from the mountain, people were standing up from the ground and looking at their palms and looking at the sky and trying to decide, for the first time in the history of the species, who they were when they were not a weapon. He did not go to them. He walked past the valley on the ridge line above it. And as he did not stop to explain himself, he did not stop to accept anything. He did not have anything they had that he needed. And they did not yet understand what he had done, and they would not understand for a long time. And the understanding, when it came, would not require his presence to complete itself. He walked east. The sun that had come up behind him was now climbing above the horizon ahead of him, and the shadow of his body ran back along the ridge toward the crater where Madara lay, and the shadow was the last thing the mountain would see of him. Konan walked beside him for a mile. At the end of the mile, she stopped. He stopped. "I'm going back to the rain," she said. "They're going to need somebody who knows the machine to help them learn to live without it." "Good. Will I see you?" "Maybe." "Where are you going?" Naruto looked east. He looked at the road below the ridge. He looked at the sun. "Everywhere," he said. She smiled. It was a small one. She turned around. She walked west. He watched her go until she was a figure on the ridge at a distance, and then he did not watch her anymore, and he turned east and he kept walking. The Jinchuriki, down on the plain, had gathered into a loose group. B was sitting on a rock. Yugito was standing. Han was on his feet. Roshi was leaning against a boulder. Utakata was looking at the sky. Fu was crying, not from grief, because the 7 tails had not been a prison to her the way it had been to the others, but from the absence. The absence had the shape of a voice she had spoken with her whole life, and now it did not speak back, and she would be a long time adjusting to the quiet of her own head. Kabuto, at the base of the mountain, was walking up to them with medical supplies. Because the chakra removal at planetary scale had left no one hurt, but had left everyone in a state that needed to be sat with. None of them came after Naruto. They had all known, before they had come, that he was going to walk away at the end of it. He had told them in the first conversation. He had told them in every conversation since. He had not softened the telling. He had not asked any of them to come with him past the crater. They watched him go. B, after a long time, stood up. He cleared his throat. The others looked at him. B opened his mouth to rap the end of the day. He closed his mouth. He did not rap. He said in a voice that was his own voice without any of the flourish he had carried since he was 9. He did it. He did it, Yugito said. He walked off, Han said. Yeah, B said. They stood on the plain for a long time. None of them was in a hurry to go anywhere. None of them had anywhere they had to be. The seals were not seals anymore. The village rosters had been dissolved, in practice if not on paper, by the removal of the thing that had made the rosters make sense. They were free in a sense that most of them had not been free since before they could walk. They walked down off the plain together at noon. They did not go to any of the 5 hidden villages. They went to a town. The town had been a town before it had been a shinobi country's town, and it would be a town after. And the Jinchuriki walked into it at sundown and sat down at an inn and ordered food and ate it. They did not speak about the day. They would speak about it later. They had the rest of their lives. In the Hokage Tower, the 3rd Hokage sat at his desk. He had not moved since the moment the chakra had lifted. He was holding his pipe in one hand. The pipe was cold. It had been cold for an hour. He was not going to light it again. He was looking at the window. The light on the window was different from any light the village had ever had during his tenure, and he could not say why at first, because the change was not in the light itself. The change was in what the light was not illuminating. There was no low hum of chakra in the air. He had not heard it until it was gone. He had spent 70 years in rooms with the hum and had never noticed the hum. And now the silence was the loudest thing in the room. Kakashi came to the door. He did not knock. He had not knocked on the Hokage's door in a long time. Sir, I know. Is it? Yes. Kakashi stood in the doorway. He did not come in. He did not leave. After a long moment, he said, was it him? Yes. Kakashi closed his one eye. He turned and left the office. He went home. He sat in his apartment chair. He looked at his hands. He had uncovered his Sharingan out of habit on the way in. The Sharingan was not activated. The Sharingan would not activate. The scar across his eye was still there. The eye under the scar was the eye Obito Uchiha had given him on the night Obito Uchiha had not died at Kanabi. And now the eye was just an eye, and Kakashi Hatake, who had been running his life on the currency of an apology he had owed to one boy, sat in the chair and looked at his hands and did not know, for the first time in 26 years, whom he was apologizing to. He would work it out. Not that night, but in the years that followed, Sakura Haruno at the hospital, where she had been studying medical jutsu for a year, looked at the patient under her hands and felt the chakra stop flowing. The patient's wound was still there. The wound had been at the point of closing. The chakra she had been using to close it had dispersed. She took her hands away from the patient. She stood up. She called for another medic. The other medic came. The other medic also had no chakra. They stood in the ward together. Sakura looked at the patient. She looked at her hands. She took a breath. She asked the patient's name, which she had not learned because she had thought the jutsu would fix the wound before introductions became necessary. The patient told her. Sakura said hello. She began from that afternoon to learn how to close a wound without chakra. It took her 7 years. She was good at it. She was better at it than she had been at anything else in her life. The patients she closed wounds on in the years that followed did not need chakra. They needed the hands that had spent 7 years learning how. By the time she was 30, she ran the hospital. She had not spoken to Sasuke Uchiha in a decade. She had not thought of Naruto Uzumaki in weeks at a time. She was not soft anymore. She had not become hard. She had become the thing her parents had not raised her to be. Sasuke, somewhere on the continent, looked at his hands and found the Sharingan gone. He looked for Itachi. He found Itachi in the land of sound in a ruined compound, sitting on the stairs of the compound's main hall. Itachi was not dead. Itachi had been living without the technique that had been killing him for some time. Itachi looked up at Sasuke when Sasuke came into the compound, and Sasuke looked at Itachi, and they sat on the stairs together for a long time without speaking. Itachi eventually said the first sentence. Sasuke eventually said the second. The third took a year. The fourth took 2. They were brothers eventually. Gaara stayed Kazekage. He did not need the sand to be Kazekage. He was a good one. Meitarumi stayed Mizukage. She did not need lava release to be Mizukage. She was a good one. She laughed more. A stayed Raikage. He did not need lightning armor to be Raikage. He was a harder one without the armor, not softer, because the armor had been the thing that had let him be gentle to the people he loved by putting the work of violence into the metal. Without the metal, he had to be gentle by the work of his own hands, and the work was harder, and he did it. Onoki retired. He had been waiting to retire for a decade. He retired on the afternoon of the day the chakra left, because there was no longer anything the office required that his bones could no longer provide. Sarutobi Hiruzen retired that evening. He named a successor. The successor was not a shinobi, had never been one, because the office no longer required one. The successor was a woman who had been running the village's civilian administration for 22 years and had been the person who actually fixed things when they broke. Her name was not on any bingo book. She was very good at the job. The village, over the next 5 years, became a village rather than a hidden village, which was, in some ways, what villages had been trying to be the whole time. And on the road, moving east, Naruto Uzumaki walked. He walked through the first village and the second. He did not stop. He did not announce himself. The villages he walked through had no way of knowing who he was, because the chakra he carried did not advertise itself the way the chakra of a shinobi of his level would have advertised itself in the old world. To the people who saw him pass, he was a 15-year-old boy in a repaired jacket with his hands in his pockets. He walked for a long time. He walked to the coast. He took a boat east. He walked in a country where the continent's wars had been a rumor, where the hidden villages had been names in a textbook, where the absence of chakra had registered in the morning only as a change in the quality of the light. He walked through that country and into another one. He walked for years. He did not announce what he had done. He did not take credit. He did not correct people who told the story wrong. The story, as it moved across the continent and the countries beyond it, went through the shapes stories go through. Some versions had him as a god. Some versions had him as a demon. Some versions said the chakra had left of its own accord because it had been tired. Some versions said the chakra was not gone, only hiding, and would return when it was needed. None of the versions were accurate. One of the versions, told in a small fishing village in the land of water by an apothecary who had once cared for a girl with wings, came closer than the others. But that version was not the one that spread. The kids born in the years after the lift did not know what chakra had been. They knew, from stories, that their parents had been able to do things they could not do. They knew some of their parents had been sad about the losing and others had been relieved. They did not, themselves, feel the loss because they had never held what had been taken. They grew up in a world where disputes between countries were settled, when they were settled, by people who had to look each other in the face. Many of the disputes did not get settled. The world was not a paradise. It was a world of people, and the people were not, as a whole, better than they had been with chakra. They were not worse either. They were on the ground. They had the ground to stand on. They had their own hands. Naruto, in that world, walked. He walked until he had walked everywhere he had wanted to see. He walked until he was no longer 15, and then no longer 20, and then past that. He walked in the places where the ruins of the old shinobi villages had been overwritten by newer buildings, and he walked in the places where the ruins had not been touched because nobody had wanted to live there. He did not go back to Konoha for a long time. When he did go back, the village did not recognize him. He did not announce himself. He bought a bowl of ramen at the shop whose owner had set out bowls for him when he was 8. The owner was dead. The owner's daughter ran the shop. She made the bowl the way her father had made it. Naruto ate it. He did not say thank you, because he had decided a long time ago that thank you was not the right word for what the bowls had been. He set the coins on the counter, and he looked at the daughter once, and he walked out of the shop, and the daughter watched him go, and she said to her assistant, an hour later, that she had served someone strange, and the assistant asked what she meant by strange, and the daughter said she did not know. She could not say. That was how it was with Naruto in the later years. People who met him could not say. They would describe him. The descriptions would not match. They would try to tell a friend about the man they had met on the road, and the friend would not be able to place him either, and the story of the meeting would be the story of a feeling. Something had passed through the afternoon. Something had sat at the next table at dinner. Something had said in the line at the market, a sentence that the person remembered thinking about for a week afterward. They would describe him as tall or short or young or middle-aged or blonde or with hair gone gray. He was all of those things in different places because time went on and he went on with it. He held the lock. The lock held. No chakra came back into the world. He did not let it. He did not speak of his reasons. His reasons were what they had been since the bowl had left his hands when he was 6, and they had not changed. And he did not explain them to anyone because the explanation was not owed to anyone who had not asked for the bowl back. And on the first morning, at the end of the first day, walking east out of the crater where he had left, Madara Uchiha face down in the rubble of his own Chibaku Tensei, Naruto Uzumaki did not look back. The sun came up over the eastern ridge. The ridge had trees on it that were green in the way the world was green before the shinobi world had learned to set things on fire at scale. The wind came through the trees and across his face. His hands were in his pockets. The energy in his chest, which was not energy anymore, exactly, because it had merged with the Ten-Tail's scope and become something larger and older, sat inside him the way weight sits in a body that has learned how to carry it. He walked. The road ahead of him was not a road. It was the beginning of one. The continent behind him was standing up. He did not look back. He never did.
If you watched the whole thing, you already know. Drop a like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to see what a real overpowered Naruto story looks like. More coming. Don't sleep.